of the Sugar-Free League series. These are the finals. Murk Nimbus, the supposed favorites, up against Big Black Clocks, who came in having to win a tiebreaker, having to fight their way to the finals and claiming conference gap. And after game one, we almost have to give it to them because they didn't just win, they won in a dominant fashion.
Although they lost that initial beginning of the game, the exact opposite of this. They managed to hang in there and come back in the mid and late. But if they're given an advantage this early, especially on Pure Acid, a champion on Kha'Zix, a champion that we were talking about before we went live on the desk, needs to be incredibly far ahead to do anything this game. Well, he is. He has his 1 kill and both of his jungle parts. So what is this guy going to be able to do? This is a champion that's been banned away from him all postseason long, and we have yet to see it. But now he's gotten an early lead. This is almost ideal.
Almost ideal, yes. But as we also discussed, Kha'Zix, even with that first lead, as strong of a champion as he is, and as fantastic as Pure Acid is, as both a jungler and on his main of Kha'Zix, it's still a really, really difficult team to abuse that lead with. And if you can get to bot lane before 6, you can probably pick up some kills on Sion or Khan. But Vlad, Zac, and Shen, outside of that 5-man invade, of course, they're all champions that aren't that easy to get around.
Absolutely, and as well, he is going Conqueror, which people that even go Assassin Kha'Zix go, but also Bruiser, Kha'Zix, and Rengar, both of these, little thematically connected champions. They both have very similar high elo builds in terms of that Conqueror, go for a little bit more Bruiser and team fighty presence as opposed to just one-shotting. So that could be what he's actually going for here, looking for more team fight strength in the champion. But I don't think it's been as successful as a lot of other Bruiser Assassin builds have been. So we're going to have to see exactly how that goes. And in the top side, Oven Johnson already with a sizable lead against Shadowy Figure, but Electrocute and Pure Acid are just walking into Drops' jungle, trying to take away everything they possibly can from him. He manages to smite it away and walk out unscathed, but his Krugs will not, as Pure Acid is looking to take that in a double knock-up. The grand entrance from a Furious Doctor hits 2 people, and Smurf Ginger is getting dangerously low, and so now is Drops. That Cell Division might have to pop, but Shadowy Figure, when looking to help him, might have himself been stuck in a sticky situation. Bear Trap on a rope is going to connect, but doesn't pull him back, and Pure Acid is still looking for something. These guys just won't give my throat a break, as now Shadowy Figure is actually getting incredibly low. Both Drops and Shadowy Figure have had to use their flash. Pure Acid is pushing this 1 kill to the limit in terms of map presence.
Yeah, and that's just a case of someone not knowing when to back off.
Oh no, Drops. Drops doesn't have, he has Cell Division, but that might not be enough. A Furious Doctor looks for the Battle Dance in, and now Shadowy Figure is trying to help out his jungler. Boone forced to TP, not letting Drops fall, but in goes Oven Johnson. Is going to pick up that one. Shadow Fear is getting low as well. He doesn't have Flash anymore. 1 auto away from death, and double kill for Oven Johnson. We said Pure Acid needed to push his kill to the limit, and although he hasn't picked up any kills for himself, he's put Oven Johnson ahead after living in Drops' topside jungle for what seemed like years.
Yeah, and this is just a case of not knowing when to back off, feeling like you have to contest something as small as just the first Krugs, when you can just accept, you know what, I have to fall behind, and I have to just play for the mid to late game. Instead, we see them really...
Oh no, Callie's getting lower and lower. Healing through that Ignite is not going to be very efficient, but thereby also wants to extend this trade. Both supports getting incredibly low, both ADs getting incredibly low, but actually give the advantage to Smurf Ginger if this keeps going. His Piercing Arrow might be what wins it for him, thereby also looking for more return damage. A Furious Doctor barely healing up with that Quill, and now in goes Callie looking for this pickup. The Nimbus Cloak might have just saved Smurf Ginger. Both bot laners, that 2v2 is so volatile. They're both an auto attack away, and a Pure Acid is looking for something, and Murk Nimbus know it. He jumps in. A Furious Doctor is going to fall. Pure Acid using that damage to fix something up, and now Callie's going to get turret dove, but it's going to all be about if he can turn this around on Smurf Ginger. He doesn't have heal. He doesn't have Flash, and Pure Acid 3-0-2. Wow.
This feels like a lot of disrespect coming over from Murk Nimbus. They're trying to overstay for fights that you wouldn't expect them to do in a finals game. They're trying to push advantages that don't exist yet, and it just feels like for whatever reason, despite last game, they still think that they're better than this team. And yet what we're seeing here is they are definitely not. They are being abused every time they make a mistake. And rather than trying to bandage it, rather than trying to slow things down and play this game with a more intelligent spin on it, they're just repeating the same mistakes.
As you can see, even Shadowy Figure walking a little far up there. Oven Johnson has the remount close. He's trying to get closer and closer with that pocket pixel, but Drops is in the top side, and he's looking for an elastic slingshot to try and finish him off, but ends up avoiding it. Oven Johnson takes the long route home. But it's like you say, Murk Nimbus have been cocky these past 2 games, both in draft, and now we see in the game itself, they've picked a composition very focused around team fighting in the mid and late game, but they keep taking skirmishes in early. This is the exact opposite of what they're supposed to be doing, and you can see how it's paying off for them. It is putting them in the red significantly. 2.3k gold lead already 6 minutes into the game for the BBC.
Yeah, they're going to want to push this lead as much as they can. They're going to want the early dragons. If they can get it, they're going to want that first Rift Herald, and they're going to want to open up the map. Because regardless of how cocky Nimbus is being, and how much they're being punished for it, we're going to see them start to be able to do things at one point or another, regardless of how this turns out. Because Shen's going to get ultimate. Zac is going to get tanky. Vladimir is going to be able to just 1v5, and at that point, it doesn't matter how wonderfully you have played early game, because they have. So they need to push this advantage while they have it.
There will still be a ticking clock this entire game, and BBC seem to know it. They've taken this first dragon, trying to accelerate their soul, is now Electrocute. Seems like he's been out of lane more than in it, but he's still at about the same CS lead. And that's one of the advantages of Talia, pardon me. Able to push those early advantages, and Drops seems to be absolutely chunked. Pure Acid already has so much damage under his belt. Imagine if he gets on a carry, and it seems like he already is. He's looking to dive bottom lane. Callie and Furious Doctor step up. This could be terrible for them.
Yeah, trying to clear the wave as quickly as possible. I'm not sure if they know that Kha'Zix is there, but you have to suspect something when the enemy lane is being so aggressive. And instead, we're just going to see kind of things normalize out. The only person so far who has not died is Boone. And so I'm guessing we're going to see a lot of play around him, wanting to get him ahead, wanting to get him a couple of kills. But right now, Nimbus just has to find a way to Searcher the wound and slow this game down, so that way they can actually get to their win conditions.
And although Shadow Figure is being pretty aggressive in this top side, it's not in a way where he's really giving up lane presence. Smart use of his abilities. But it does kind of show you as well how both these teams are operating right now. Murk Nimbus wants to slow down the game like you're saying, and they actually have been succeeding for the past 2 minutes. It doesn't sound like it's been that long, but they're still looking for something. But now, Kled is looking for the dive, and he's going to get it. That dismount gives him the extra turret shot or 2 avoidance that he needed to pick up the kill on Shadowy Figure. 0-3 on the top side. No teleport means that Oven Johnson is just going to rail down this turret's plates, getting another one. I believe that's going to be his second after this next minion wave pushes, and he's going to back, likely getting his Bork.
Yeah, up 3 kills, up 2 tower plates, 1 tower plate right now. And now with Rift Herald almost certainly going over to Kha'Zix for free, there's just a lot going in the favor of Big Black Clocks, and there has to be something in response. They need to get kills, either be it on Xayah or Vladimir, but those are the only 2 champions at this point of the game who are going to be able to make something positive happen.
And in comes Electrocute. This has been the star of BBC, and now he's using the Weaver's Wall to try and make something happen. Bot lane, Shadowy Figure falling, though, means that thereby also is going to drop lower and lower. Furious Doctor using that Gleaming Quill to heal himself back up a little, thereby also tries to get something back, just keeping Callie focused on him, and Murk Nimbus finally returned. But meanwhile, on the top side, it's the Rift Herald, and that means that first turret's already been lost by Murk Nimbus, but one thing that I really do want to congratulate them on is the fact that they finally looked for something back. As soon as Electrocute started using the Weaver's Wall, Shadowy Figure said, "I'm there." Started teleporting backside, standing united with his team, and that could be one of the ways that they hold out this game until the 30-35 minute mark.
Yeah, the kill did go over to Shen, which is not something we want to see, but when you've fallen this far behind the Kled, and when you're goal is going to be to try and allow Zaya and allow Vladimir to live long enough to output the damage needed to win this game, then getting a little bit of gold on Shen might not be a bad thing. Zaya is only mildly behind Varus in farm, and while Varus is certainly a devastating champion to get ahead into the mid game, Zaya is, you get 2 or 3 items on her, she starts to just melt teams due to the nature of her feathers, as will Vladimir.
And we're talking about how the kill on Shadowy Figure is not ideal. This tank champion, a killer 2, really isn't going to put him in a situation where he can fight Kled. You already see it here. Look at those trades. Oven Johnson dictating the top side of the map, and with drops down below, trying to find a way to contest this dragon, or at least get vision secured around it. It means Shadowy Figure is going to be alone for that much longer. He has the ultimate, or pardon me, the teleport, to try and rejoin his team if they do end up fighting, but by the same token, so does Oven Johnson, and he's going to be a lot more impactful.
Yeah, and we're gonna start seeing Kha'Zix, continue to try to push his lead. We already know that he falls off, and as a Kha'Zix main, there's no way that he is somehow unknowledgeable about the weakness of his.
And now he's found Boone, having to use that pool of blood, flashing over the wall, but Pure Acid is going to follow him. The Elastic Slingshot isn't going to mean anything. Pure Acid flashes forward, drops, was not close enough to manage to drop that isolation debuff, which means that Pure Acid's going to pick up the kill onto Boone, who loses his flash in return. Definitely not going to feel good for him. Finally dropping, you were talking about how he might be the one shining light for Murk Nimbus in this game, the one person who had not died, but Pure Acid wanted those relentless hunter stacks, I guess. So he targets him down as quickly as he can. Second dragon goes over to BBC, although it isn't correctly showing up on the map. That's a little bit of a spectator glitch. That is going to be exactly what BBC want. They want to push this game forward as quickly as they can, but now a Furious Doctor and Callie might be in trouble. Weaver's Wall from Electrocute is going to mean that BBC are looking for a fight. A Furious Doctor does end up falling, and Oven Johnson's looking on to Callie. Has to burst the flash, trying to use Nimbus Cloak to get out of this one, but Oven Johnson's going to pick it up. Boone had teleported on the back, thought he could do something, but an 0-1 Vladimir isn't that strong yet, buddy, so he's just going to walk away, burning that summoner to provide really no pressure.
We talked about the champions that actually need these kills, that actually need these advantages, and we specifically pointed out that putting these kills on Shen or Zac just isn't going to do anything for Murk Nimbus, and yet both of their kills are on their tank enablers. Both of their kills are going on to people who cannot facilitate really a comeback in this game, because that's what they need here. Down 5,000 gold, already lost top turret. Kled and Kha'Zix are just massive forces, and while neither one of them are the traditional solo carry in a competitive 5s game, right now they're just splitting the load, and so maybe they can do that. I don't know at this point of the game that Zaya and Vladimir are going to be able to reach a point where they can actually start contributing to this team.
Yeah, this so far is looking like BBC's game to win. It's up to them to push this advantage forward, but we've seen that they know how to, and they just keep doing it over and over again, choking out every objective, winning every single fight. Callie and Boone don't have the damage yet, like you're saying, and they might not have it in this game at all. Callie hasn't completed his item yet. Boone hasn't completed his item yet. Going for that 40% CDR garage sale build is the way to go normally, but he needs some power now, so I do expect to see some build adaptation from both of these players.
Yeah, and we were speaking earlier about just whether or not the side of Big Black Clocks will have the sustained damage they need to scale into late game. We know that Kha'Zix and Talia and Kled, they don't really get to a point where they can just have high sustained DPS output. But now that I'm looking at it, this Varus is going to go the on-hit build, so he will be the source of that damage if he's allowed to live that long.
Boone now retreating under tower, not knowing that Pure Acid might have been waiting for this exact moment. This is looking very dangerous for him. Actually, Oven Johnson joining them as well. Stand United is going to come out. Shadowy Figure is trying to protect him, but the red turret is destroyed. That was actually all BBC were looking for. They just wanted that gone, and now Shadowy Figure is in a difficult situation. Drops using that Elastic Slingshot to drop down Oven Johnson, get him demounted, and The Chains of Corruption are going to root up Boone, but not really going to have anything happen towards the end of that fight. But it is BBC who come out on top of that with the turret destruction.
And now we do see the strength of Nimbus's composition there. Despite the massive gold disadvantage, despite the massive kill and experience disadvantage, they were able to fight there essentially without a turret. The turret dropped before it actually aggroed anyone or output any damage. And they're certainly down in experience and levels right now, yet they were able to fight and then leave without anybody dying. The longer this game goes on, the more of that we're going to see. Only it's going to start turning into them picking up some kills. So Big Black Clocks, while they have been doing their best to accelerate this game, need to start getting something that really allows them to get towards that end game for them, to get towards ending the game. And that Rift Herald might be exactly what they need.
It's like you're saying, and without traditional siege tools, I was talking about this earlier with Baron, but Rift Herald's the same. If you don't have Zoe, Ezreal, something like that to try and poke out people under turret, you need this Rift Herald to really open up the map. You need a Baron to open up the map, and so far Pure Acid, I believe, has picked up both of them. So this is not looking good for Murk Nimbus if they're looking to contest this game early. Now, Shadowfigure and a Fury Structure are trying to get something off onto thereby also an Oven Johnson. Burning the Nautilus Flash might be good, trying to slow down his pick potential. So Murk Nimbus are taking everything they can get right now.
Taking everything that they can get, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. Kali and Boone finally finishing their first items, which are going to be huge, but neither one of them are really power spikes for their champions. Whereas looking over at Pure Acid, he's already got 2 completed items. His Warriors, which is his jungle item, and that Dusk Blade already finished. Pre-20 minutes.
Yeah, and this is going to actually be the 3rd dragon, although there is a little bit of a spectator bug, so you can't see. This is going to be the 1st Ocean Dragon and 3rd dragon for BBC, and none for Murk Nimbus so far, which means this is a 3-for-0 dragon lead. Soul just around the corner, and one as powerful as Ocean Soul is something that you know BBC are going to look for.
Yeah, at this point, you know, we were talking the only chance that Nimbus had in this game was to slow it down and allow Vladimir and Xayah to get their spikes. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't see them being able to actually stop this enemy team unless they start getting these shutdown golds, and they start getting these shutdown golds on their carries. Vladimir needs to get kills. Kali on that Xayah needs to get kills, and if they don't, they're just going to be choked out of this game.
I don't know if Boone knew that was actually revealing him, but it did, and Shadowy Figure not even going to have the chance to come in. Big misplay from Boone means that he's going to fall already. Now a 5v4. Don't believe that Rift Herald's up anymore, but now just a standard good old siege. Oven Johnson's looking to remount before this fight begins, though, and Kelly is already bursted down. That means that both of the damage dealers are pretty much not going to be able to contest this turret at all. BBC are trying to push forward even farther. Shadow Figure would have to commit a teleport, but instead decides he's going to recall, join his team. Just a standard old defense. But both teams actually, or pardon me, not both teams, BBC is just taking this, and now Murk Nimbus know they have to go in. Shadow Figure manages to pick off Pure Acid. He has been stomping this game. Boone now goes on to Smurf Ginger. He says, I finally have the damage Hemo play coming through, and the piercing arrow's not going to be enough. The Weaver's Wall is going to isolate Shadowy Figure in this fight, but he just keeps looking for the kills, thereby also is already incredibly low. Oven Johnson can't auto-attack through that field. A Furious Doctor with another knock-up onto Electrocute. That's going to be extremely dangerous for him, but Oven Johnson flashes away from the feathers, and now he's going to be in this fight. He has the remount ability again, but will he be able to get it off? Electrocute manages to pick up the kill into Shadowy Figure, and now it is Kali and Drops versus both of them. But they're just going to back off. They know that they don't have the damage to face this combo.
Yeah, a 3-for-3 trade only means so much after you've lost 3 turrets, almost lost your inhibitor. You're already down and on the back foot. And while they do need the gold, they do need the kills and the experience. None of that went over to your carries. The one kill that Boone did pick up on the Varus was not a shutdown kill. In fact, all the shutdown gold, if I'm not mistaken, went over to the Shen, who again is not going to be able to carry this game. And so all that does is that extends Nimbus's comeback condition even further. They need to be able to get these kills onto their carries. They need to be able to get the late game with some semblance of power, but they're not getting anything that they need right now.
Not at all. Now Oven Johnson behind enemy lines looking for this turret. He has demolished. He just has to hit it one more time. And he just keeps going forward. He knows he can remount. Now the Chains of Corruption are going to lock down Shadowy Figure as he runs for his life. He's going to manage to get out, but a Furious Doctor will die for his sins. Now we're back to exactly what we saw before as BBC look to end this game as fast as they can. 20 minutes comes up. Oven Johnson gets back on Skarl, and BBC just keep looking for more and more. This could be 2 inhibs.
This could be 2 inhibs, and most likely this is 2 inhibs. The only reason they would back off at this point would be to secure either the Baron, which obviously not going to happen, or the Dragon.
Shadowy Figure. He's going to fall, trying to defend the inhib. He's going to be punished drastically, and now Murk Nimbus just have to back off, go back to their fountain, and try and regen anything that they possibly can back. But BBC aren't going to push their luck. They're going to wait for this Baron coming up soon, and instead just go through the enemy jungle, clearing out all the camps they can, all the vision they can, choke out Murk Nimbus in some standard League of Legends.
And I guess I was a fool. I said obviously they wouldn't be going for Baron, thinking they didn't need to. They could probably just siege and start to end the game, but instead they're like, cast or curse. No, let's go ahead and just take Baron and reset this game. Honestly, I don't think it's going to cost them a whole lot. They are so far ahead with so much gold advantage. At 11,000 gold at 21 minutes. That is astounding. No one would look at this and think that Murk Nimbus was coming into this game as the favorites to win it all.
Yeah, and 11,000 gold is a big number, but even in context, you look at some percentages. Murk Nimbus have 3,000 right now. BBC have 33% more than them at least, so that's a lot more gold than you initially think on Murk Nimbus. Know that they have to fight now, or this could all be over. Drops looks for something on the backline, and so far it's working, but the Chains of Corruption are actually going to stop him. Stand United as well means that Shadowy Figure is not going to be able to help him in the back end of that fight. Hemoplay comes out, but Oven Johnson responds and says, "Boone, you are mine." He remounts and seems safe. So much health coming back for him, and Shadowy Figure is going to fall as well. Pure Acid showing that the early Kha'Zix pick wasn't just for show. He didn't get this banned from him almost every single game this postseason because he was just a little too afraid to pull the trigger in these fights. He has been dictating them. And now, with only Boone and a Furious Doctor left up to defend for the next 20 seconds, it looks like BBC are just going to push to win. Oven Johnson already on those turrets, using Demolish to its full effect, and with 2 super minion waves with Baron, even with drops trying to Elastic Slingshot and delay this, it might not be enough. Thereby also lands the hook, and Oven Johnson comes out legendary 8-0 this game with a massive, massive kill percentage. BBC once again pick another game in even more convincing fashion than before, and with even more unconventional picks than before.
We were talking about whether or not Big Black Clocks were going to be able to put up a fight to prove that they weren't just gold and plat players, and yet not only have they gone very quickly to a 2-0 lead, that game was a 23-minute victory. They were talking about there being a conference gap, and as much as we thought that that was a meme, it looks like that might actually be true. The Saturday conference has consistently put up a fight, no matter what rank they were, that made it look like maybe the Friday conference just wasn't up to snuff. And now that we're here in the finals, unless there's a reverse sweep coming in, I mean, Big Black Clocks are standing right in front of the trophy.
And Murk Nimbus, they have been in this position before in the semifinals, I believe. They were down 0-2 and had to come all the way back. Maybe it was the quarterfinals versus the Imperial Knights. Every single one of their postseason games have reached a full 5-series match, or 5-game series so far. So they're looking to make sure that that stat doesn't fall off now. And one more thing I do want to mention is that Murk Nimbus are in a very dangerous situation coming into this game, because they've been put in a massive draft hole. They have drafted for early counter picks to try and disrespect Big Black Clocks and just prove they're the better players. They failed there. Now they've picked a late game, mid game team fight composition where, you know, they just kind of want to wait it out. slow down the game, and then regain control of the series. Then they failed again. There aren't that many more styles you can turn to. If you can't win on the meta and you can't win on the comfort, you have to start looking for even more unconventional drafting methods because these have not worked so far.
So that's just it. I don't think Murk Nimbus has pulled out comfort yet, and I think if nothing else, last game was the ultimate sign that they should. I think that right now they are way too in their own heads. They are way too just susceptible to the stress that the finals have put upon them. And I think that their only chance of coming back in this series is to just relax, understand that they are here for a reason. Conference gap be damned, and they have to be able to pull together a win. And I think the only way that they do that is to pull out the comfort, to pull out what we have seen them get here on. They have to be able to just play their game and not try to make it such a complicated issue.
Yeah, you heard it here. Murk Nimbus looking to pull out some more comfort picks in this next draft phase, hoping to pull out some pocket picks that are really going to shock and change up the drafts towards the rest of the series. They want another 5-game series because that's the only way they get back in it. They're going to try and take it to Silver Scrapes. Big Black Clocks are up 2-0. Hello everybody and welcome back to Sugar Free League. We're going right into the draft phase. No stopping. Just like BBC having this entire series. Picking up the Nautilus again, they want to fight as often as possible. And seeing the Nautilus Xayah Syndra, that is no surprise.
No surprise, because that is exactly what they won off of last week against Handsome Esports. But finally, as we discussed going into this, Murk Nimbus going on their comfort, drops on his Lee Sin, Pike going up for Doctor, who seems to default to that whenever he doesn't get Thresh and solo queue, and Vel'Koz is something we've seen Boom dominate on plenty this season. This is going to be the true test of the conference gap. If Nimbus cannot win with this, then there's just no beating the big black clocks.
And Murk Nimbus also identifying Acid as an integral part of both of BBC's wins so far, banning Kayn, Hecarim, and Kha'Zix. I mean that they understand the presence this guy has had in this series. He's been all over the map. In that first game even, he set his entire team up for success, pretty much carried on his back for the first 10 minutes of the game. He was living in Drops' jungle, and this time with the Lee Sin, Drops doesn't want to be put in that same situation. He wants to be able to contest. He wants to be able to fight.
Yeah, Lucian being picked away as the final ban is a little bit of a surprise to me. I don't think that Kali was too impactful on it game one. And not only that, I felt like it was almost a weak point, because they never got to get off any of the damage. And if you force him onto something, no way that Drake
Oh my gosh.
picked. Yeah, there we go. Caitlyn is more to the tune of what I was expecting here. But now this does put a lot of pressure on their top lane, because, you know, Oven Johnson and Shadowy Figure have been fairly back and forth thus far in this series. So now, for the first time, I believe, Shadowy Figure is allowed to get the counter pick.
And we know that this guy can play carries just as well, if not better, than he can play tanks. He's been put on Ornn duty, or Maokai duty over and over again, and excelled on it. But also, his Gangplank, his Trundle, these are picks that he's brought up quite a bit, and I actually kind of expect to see Trundle this time, a nice little bit of solo queue counter to Olaf, and we've seen in Phoenix Rising League. Murk Nimbus have done a very similar draft, and then when Olaf is picked against them, they pick up the Trundle to make sure that he can't gank or initiate on Murk Nimbus as easily, and especially with no frontline, that's something you really need. But as soon as you see set Murk Nimbus, Shadowy Figure locks in his Jace, a signature counter pick that he's been pulling out against set recently.
Yeah, this game is going to boil down to essentially the same question that's been happening. Can Murk Nimbus get an advantage? And by get an advantage, I don't mean that they're just ahead a single dragon. I don't mean that they're even ahead one or two plates. I mean, they have to win a team fight, because time and time again, we have seen that big black clocks are ready to just throw down and brawl. And every time they do that, big black clocks come out ahead.
Yeah, and I actually kind of challenge that point, because I think that Murk Nimbus want to do almost everything but fight. They have arranged a by-the-book, other than the Lee Sin, a by-the-book poke comp, and even then, Lee Sin fits into pretty much everything. So they're looking to slowly chunk down the members of Big Black Clocks while they're forced under turret through these constant pushing waves, and then in goes Pike, in goes the Vel'Koz laser, and then a team fight erupts, or a skirmish to try and finish it off. So I think that Murk Nimbus, if they can't win the fights before they even begin, that's where they really lose the game, because they aren't going to be able to take their picks like Vel'Koz, Caitlyn, and Jace and push those towards siege advantages. So much of this game is going to be reliant about how Murk Nimbus play around these early turret plates and getting a gold advantage from those.
Yeah, they're going to have to play in the way that essentially Big Black Clock showed off game 2, is that these compositions don't have to go towards early or late. They don't have to go towards anything specific. Sometimes you can just pick whatever, as long as you know how to play around it as a team. And this is certainly nothing but comfort picks for Nimbus. If they cannot win with this, then there's just no beating the Big Black Clocks.
And what a way for Big Black Clocks to really show off that they deserve the finalist victory. Murk Nimbus, as rough and a rocky postseason that they had, they were dominating the regular season, and they are still undefeated in a series. So BBC had their challenge laid out for them quite clearly. They had to take down a team after coming out of a very rough semifinals themselves. They had to take down a team that seemed during the regular season pretty untouchable, but now they're showing that they can just give them a masterclass in how to play the game. These early and mid games have been immensely, and I mean immensely, actually jungle diff. And seeing Pure Acid on Olaf, one of those traditional very early game junglers, and paired up with a Syndra in the mid lane means that I expect a lot of the action to be around there as well. If Olaf and Syndra manage to group up and really push Vel'Koz into a dangerous situation, around level 6, Boone should not be safe.
Yeah, I don't know if it was 2016 or 2017 where we saw SKT really get popular for, regardless of how sloppy their games got and how close their series became, they still just did not drop a single best of 5. And then the very next year, it was the same story of, well, if you go into a series, a best of 5 series against SKT, it doesn't matter how bad they've been playing, they're just going to find a way to eke it out. And that was the year they lost in the finals to Samsung Galaxy. And so this is going to be a question of, which year is it? What are we going to see here? Will Nimbus be able to hold on to their title of an undefeated champion? Or will their first and only defeat be in the finals here, showing a conference gap?
And it's going to be with one of the most difficult to execute compositions paired up there with Split Push in League of Legends. Poke comps and Siege comps in particular are really not that easy to execute in 5s, because when a set Olaf and Nautilus are on the enemy team, and when you like to fight as much as BBC do, it's going to be very hard to play around those engage timers. So Murk and Nimbus are saying that they're going to step it up this game, that they're going to win a game that if they couldn't execute a teamfight comp, they shouldn't be able to execute this. But that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited for this game. It is game 3, it is match point right now, and Murk and Nimbus are taking the road less traveled.
Yeah, and we're going to have to just see how they start off. Hopefully there's not another pre-minion spawn death. Hopefully that this is going to be the game that can give us the 5-game series, and if not, I'm sure we'll know very soon, because Big Black Clocks have not been shy of getting these games started off right. So I think on that note, with the last minute and 30 seconds left, we are going to go ahead and take a short break for the spectator delay. Please don't go anywhere, because this could be the final game of the night.
Yeah, this is going to be it. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch that browser. We'll be right back.
Yeah, keep it simple. Drop a rock into the water, watch it ripple. Tides turn quick, just keep your head on a swivel. Competition getting stiff, I'm here to make you wiggle. You know me, surround your whole town, make you yell siege. All-star, homie, this the king's speech. You can lock it down, we gon' still preach. Boy, preach. Who's next in line? Can you make that climb? Now is the time, get out of your mind. Raise up the lights, we all here tonight, so let's do it right. Yo, we came here to fight. Who's next in line? Can you make that climb? Now is the time, this world is mine. Raise up the lights, we all here tonight, so let's do it right. Yo, we came here to fight. Boy, you already know I'm the real wonder. Before I bring the storm, you gonna feel thunder. So your body count is up there with killmongers. How about you come take a look at some real numbers? Might just double up on you while I still slumber. I'm the living proof, I'm just coming through for the thrill of it. Room full of all-stars, we all guys. Somebody gotta be Zeus, I'll take charge. Fight. Who's next in line? Can you make that climb? Now is the time, get out of your mind. Raise up the lights, we all here tonight, so let's do it right. Yo, we came here to fight. Who's next in line? Can you make that climb? Now is the time, this world is mine. Raise up the lights, we all here tonight, so let's do it right. Yo, we came here to fight. Positive, negative, I'll take charge and shake eyes, remain great while I pay homage. They always said that pressure can make diamonds, so keep climbing all the way up, that's where you'll find me. Right next to the legends, I go off my brethren. Said goodbye to the old me, I'ma make sure that you know me. After this here, you gon' own me. Didn't choose a game, it chose me. You know what G-O mean to an OG, let's go. Fight, who's next in line? Can you make that climb? Now is the time, get out of your mind. Raise up right, yo, we came here to fight. Who's next in line? Can you make that climb? Now is the time, get out of your mind. Raise up the lights, we all here tonight, so let's do it right. Yo, we came here to fight. Who's next in line? Can you make that climb? Now is the time, this world is mine. Raise up the lights, we all here tonight, so let's do it right. Yo, we came here to fight. Yeah, get your back off the wall. Come on, yep, come one, yep, come on. Get up, yep, get your back off the wall. Come on, yep, come one, yep, come on. Yeah, keep it simple. Drop a rock into the water, watch it ripple. Tides turn quick, just keep your head on a swivel. Competition getting stiff, I'm here to make you wiggle. You know me, surround your whole town, make you yell siege. All-star, homie, this the king's speech. You can lock it down, we gon' still preach. Boy, preach. Who's next in line? Can you make that climb? Now is the time, get out of your mind. Raise up the lights, we all here tonight, so let's do it right. Yo, we came here to fight. Who's next in line? Can you make that climb? Now is the time, this world is mine. Raise up the lights, we all here tonight, so let's do it right. Yo, we came here to fight. Boy, you already know I'm the real wonder. Boy, I bring a storm, you gonna feel thunder. So your body count is up there with killmongers. How about you come take a look at some real numbers? Might just double up on you while I still slumber. I'm the living proof, I'm just coming through for the thrill of it. Room full of all-stars, we all guys. Somebody gotta be Zeus, I'll take charge. Fight. Who's next in line? Can you make that climb? Now is the time, get out of your mind. Raise up the lights.
back, everybody. Sorry for the long delay. There were some holdups from one of the members of one of the teams, who knows who, messing up with their runes, or I guess the lobby messed up their runes for them. I'm really not sure how that played out, but regardless, we are back for Game 3, and what an important Game 3 it is. Big Black Clocks are up a 2-0 lead, and it looks like they're doing the same exact invade that put them ahead in Game 2.
Yeah, they're saying, if it works, don't fix it. So they're just trying to brute force their way into Murk Nimbus's jungle yet again. They have Nautilus, they have Olaf, they have a powerful level 1, and they're looking to abuse that. But, Murk Nimbus know it, and they've gotten used to it, so they're backing off. And by the same token, Murk Nimbus have gotten some pretty good wards as well. That nice counter-invade ward on the top side made sure that drops didn't step too far up. I believe they almost got one down on the bot side of the map. So they're really trying to keep their vision line as forward as they can, even from minute 1, to be able to push their siege comp forward.
Yeah, if you are just joining us, then it's important to note that the last game was by no means a close one. Big Black Clocks, not the favorites to win this series, but certainly playing as if they should be. They were able to close out the game in just over 23 minutes, and that was with Dragon Soul and Baron. So I'm not sure what to expect for this Game 3, but if the past 2 games tell us anything, it's that we're about to see the new SFL champion.
Yeah, BBC have been absolutely incredible for the first 15 minutes of every game they've played so far. You can see Electrocute trying to keep Boone out of lane from the first wave. And I was talking earlier about how I think Acid and Electrocute are really going to move together. We saw them all 3 games on the Talia, on pretty much every single pick as well. Just having so much map presence because Electrocute, he decides, hey, I'm just going to walk with Acid. Acid has the advantage, and Acid knows it, so he's just going to challenge drops in his own jungle. Hitting him with that second axe is going to be critical, and the Scatter of the Weak does connect onto Boone. Electrocute as well. So much fighting the spot side already, but a Furious Doctor and Kali are the ones with the inside track, and it appears it might be a little bit of a situation. The Resonating Strike connects, and First Blood goes over to Drops. And now, Kali, Drops, and a Furious Doctor are trying to run down there by also in Smurf Ginger, as a pause already goes through as Elvin Johnson. Facebreaker, Shadowy Figure. Murk Nimbus already have a lead, and we were talking about earlier. If BBC get a lead, it's going to be their game, but now that Murk Nimbus have it, do you think they'll be able to extend it moving forward in this early game?
I think that judging by what we've seen from other series, it's safe to assume so. But judging by our play in the finals here in Sugar Free League, I have no idea because we haven't seen Murk Nimbus actually establish a lead for themselves. And so this is kind of uncharted territory for Game 3 here. Murk Nimbus getting that first blood on Drops, who is someone who has been targeted banned the entire series. And whether or not he's going to be able to push that lead, I think comes primarily down to what his laners are going to do. I think that we're going to see a lot of attention from Drops in the mid to bot lane this time, because Jace is normally one of those picks where once they put Shadowy on it, they just kind of expect him to be able to go even in lane and farm up and get ready to be a major damage to a slate game. That said, you put Oven Johnson on that set again. We've already seen he knows how to play that champion. He knows how to itemize, and Pure Acid really likes his top laner.
Yeah, and it is going to be BBC that called this pause, which is going to be feeling really awkward because they're the ones who are running it down, or not running it down, the opposite, running away from Murk Nimbus bot, and right after Oven Johnson connects topside, so a little bit of an awkward pause for really everybody involved, but as we are working through it, I do kind of want to talk about the positions of both mid laners right now. You see Electrocute looking to push forward his mid wave, trying to get any plate pressure he can already, but Boone kind of wants a little piece of bot side action maybe. He's stuck in lane all 3 or both of the games that we previously watched, and so far this game as well. He's stuck in lane as long as he can. He just really wants to pick up farm and get to the late game, but if the last 2 games have told us anything, that's not going to be a chance for him.
There is actually a saying, those who can't bend, break. And it basically just means that if you are not able or willing to adapt to circumstance, if you're not willing to change up how you are operating in order to fit the current need that you're given, then you don't have a chance. You're going to break under that pressure, and you're just that's going to be the end for you. And so seeing Murk Nimbus and these first 3 minutes, while this might sound a little bit blown out of proportion, if you've been watching the rest of this series, they've been very much so just trying to play quote unquote NA League. You know, they've been just trying to scale. They've been, I guess, expecting big black clocks to do the same thing, and then to get to a point where it's just both teams trying to set up macro plays. Now, rather than waiting, rather than hoping that a game hits a certain point or hoping that the enemy team plays a certain way, they've kind of just thrown down the gauntlet and said, fine, if you want to scrap, we'll scrap. Best of luck. So far, it looks like it's working.
Yeah, on the top side, there's already been a fight. Shadowy Figure and Evan Johnson trading constantly. This is a matchup Shadowy Figure opted into, so we do expect him to really start pulling ahead the later and later he goes. He likes to pick up that mana mute, and he likes to start scaling, so just keep that in mind. He's not going to be going for an early go moves. He's going to wait it out a little bit more and try and beat Set in ways that Set really can't fight, and thereby also forced to flash away a Furious Doctor landing that Bone Skewer. When you see him on a much more mobile hook champion like Pyke, you do expect him to step up. You do expect him to be more aggressive, and that's exactly what he's been doing so far this game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to need someone to... do we have any sort of, like, referee to go check out the side of Murk Nimbus? Because I have not seen this play from them the rest of this series. They have not been responsive. They have not been willing to pull the trigger. And like you said, it's almost felt as if they were afraid to. And now it feels like they're playing as though they know that they are a good team, and that's a nice change of pace. That's a refreshing change of pace, and it's giving me a little bit of hope that we'll at the very least we won't see a 3 and out. But that being said, big black clocks have made themselves such a massive mountain to climb that only time will tell.
And now we see action all across the map, especially topside. A Shadowy Figure is forced to flash away from Pure Acid's axe. Making sure that Chase uses his really one strong defensive tool this early on means that Oven Johnson has a lot more pressure in this lane, and Pure Acid might just be able to repeat gank if he wants. But since both junglers are topside, I do expect them to reset pretty soon, but Oven Johnson, knowing this, just decides, you know what, I'm going to go after Shadowy Figure. Using the phase rush, though, to try and get out means that he's going to be able to escape. And on the bot side, Callie's burning down. This was looking like it was going to go his way, but suddenly Smurf Ginger and thereby also pulled some damage out of a hat. And Callie falls on the front end of that trade. 1 kill going over to Smurf Ginger.
1 kill going over to Smurf Ginger and 1 kill going over to Pure Acid, who did remain top and get in that gank. And now with Jace teleporting
a Shadowy Figure is getting lower and lower, but Oven Johnson's actually going to fall. He's going to take down Shadowy Figure before then Triumph is keeping him in tip-top shape. Drops is going to drop 100 health, and the axe is going to be what picks that one up. A Furious Doctor not able to get anything back topside, and as soon as we were talking about how Murk Nimbus seemed to be taking fights that were intelligent, taking the fights and pushing the advantages that they wanted to, they find themselves in a 700, 800 gold deficit.
Yeah, and that was just sloppy. That was an immediate teleport up. Obviously, he was expecting the roam from drops, but it was just done so quickly, obviously without proper communication. Drops was not in the correct position to be there, and when you're level 4, surrounded by minions teleporting in, you can't expect to just go untouched or survive on a champion like Jace for 5 or 6 seconds while your jungler paths to lane. That has to just be executed better or not at all.
I really couldn't agree more, and now I do believe that dragon went over to... Oh, as soon as I was saying that, Shadowy Figure now finds himself caught on the wrong side of the map, but Oven Johnson is just going to walk away as well. Shadowy Figure has picked up 2 Doran's items, so he's really going to try and dominate this lane as hard as he can before he has to opt into his mana mune, but Oven Johnson seems like he just wants to extend this trade as well. Shadowy Figure seems perfectly fine with that, though, taking as many autos as he wants before eventually knocking him away, and Pure Acid with a little bit of a failed gank bot side means that Drops is going to know exactly where he is.
Yeah, and with him getting 6 first, he just wants to be able to continue to abuse Shadowy Figure, who doesn't look like he's respecting the gold difference at all. He's continuing to try to fight, continuing to try to sustain this, but it's it's important to remember how much damage Set does.
Now Smurf Ginger has found herself on a trap, and that means the Furious Doctor is going to pick up that kill already, but if Pure Acid wants to do something about it, he's now in a 1v3. Drops has come in trying to find some kind of assistance, and a Furious Doctor takes the turret shots, but secures the kill for Drops. Now 3-1. This Lee Sin may be the spark plug that his team needs to come back into it.
Yeah, he better be, because this seems like a flashback to a game where Callie gets none of the kills that's necessary for him to be able to become a carry AD carry. But he does have 5 assists. He has been involved in every single kill, which early game you don't expect from the ADC.
Yeah, Furious Doctor has made sure to keep up the tempo in this lane, and now Oven Johnson is feeling a little bit of the heat as Shadowy Figure walks back to lane, and although he, is very down in gold right now, by picking up those Dorn's items, making sure to get as much efficiency as he can out of the gold that he does have, by exploiting Evan Johnson before he can back and, purchase his own items, that means that Shadow Figure is going to force a not fantastic feeling recall from Oven Johnson. It's going to mean Shadow Figure now has control over the lane, and he decides to try and crash it, bounce it back in the middle, because that's where Jace really thrives, being able to poke out Set and, put him in very bad situations in lane. That's exactly why he picks this so often into Set himself. But it hasn't really been going that well so far this game.
No, it has not, but what has been going well is Pure Acid's ability to abuse the knowledge he has of Drops and go ahead and do some counter jungling. He knew that Drops was bot side or recalling due to the fact that he had recently shown himself for the dragon. And knowing that, he didn't just sit on his hands, he went immediately into Drops' top side jungle and took that red buff.
Yeah, and Pure Acid is finally picking up his blue, not giving that over to Electrocute. You can really see the difference between these junglers. Drops works very hard to facilitate Boone, to facilitate his lanes, and help get them ahead. Meanwhile, Pure Acid just takes it all for himself. We've seen this through pretty much every series both teams have played. Second blue almost always goes over to Boone, but Pure Acid picks it up himself. And now, Callie and a Furious Doctor are doing exactly what they need to in this lane. We were talking about how they need a lead. They need to be able to get these plates early on. That's why you've picked Caitlyn. That's why you've picked Pyke. And that is what they're doing. Electrocute is going to get procced by that true damage. But all that signals is for him to walk away. Boone has the Disintegration Ray, so if Electrocute gets too low, even if Pure Acid is there, it could be very dangerous for Electrocute.
It could be, but Electrocute's just going to go to get some...
Oh, a Furious Doctor actually is going to get incredibly low. The Ignite ticks. He can't stay in invisibility to heal long enough. That Grievous Wound's putting in work. Electrocute picks up a kill. Furious Doctor definitely didn't expect that one.
No, and that, again, just feels like a little bit more of this disrespect that either they don't expect the team, they don't expect the champion, or they
Oh! Shadowy Figure gets caught out of, and Johnson flashes behind him, showstoppers him back towards, well, his own side, and now Shadowy Figure's used flashes in a very dangerous situation. That's forcing him to back again with no TP, and he doesn't have that much gold. What is he going to pick up? Another Dorn's item? He has to pick up the pickaxe. He has to start working towards that mana mute, and that's what he does.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder really whether or not they understand the amount of damage these enemy players are outputting. Do you understand that Syndra just destroys people, not only with a full build, but all you need is that book. As soon as you get the Lost Chapter, you start outputting enough to really kill a level 5 support without much issue. And Doctor needs to know and respect that, or else we're gonna see more deaths like that.
Yeah, so now this game is going to start accelerating, I think, very quickly as we start fighting more and more around these neutral objectives. Both Pure Acid and Drops fall off pretty reasonably towards the late game, so they're going to want to extend this lead. And Siege comps are much more powerful in the mid game than they are late against a more traditional skirmishing or fighting comp like BBC has. So I do expect to see Murk start accelerating the game very soon.
Expect to and almost hope to, because you don't want there to be just a quick 3 and out for finals. You want there to be a challenge. You want someone to go down swinging, and right now it's just kind of been BBC's game to lose, you know? they've been able to secure so many advantages in all of their games, and while this one has been much closer, it kind of has shown a difference between Nimbus and BBC, where BBC understands their leads and knows how to abuse it, or at the very least, when they're not ahead, they know how to play safe. And it seems like Nimbus just consistently falls short in that regard.
Even this game, despite being down a kill, the gold difference is pretty substantial despite that. And I think one of the reasons that surprises me is because of the plate priority and the lane dominance that Murk Nimbus should be having right now. Xayah does not lose into Caitlyn Pyke, and the same could be said about Set. These are lanes that Murk Nimbus should be winning, but like you can see right now, that's just not happening. Shadowy Figure getting burst down. Doesn't have flash, has to just phase rush away and play extremely safe moving forward. Now, Furious Doctor's looking for something, but he has that dash. He knows he can play relatively aggressive and still manage to make it out, but all that's doing is now BBC are going to pick up their second dragon of the game, I believe.
If I'm not mistaken, that'll be their first. The first dragon went over to Murk Nimbus.
Oh no, Callie almost caught out there, and Electrocute almost getting caught as well by the death from below, manages to flash away, which means Pyke's not going to have that reset for this team fight. Pure Acid has his flash, might have to use it to get out if he doesn't turn this fight. Now Oven Johnson, no showstopper, he's in enemy lines, and the shutdown goes over to Shadowy Figure. That's exactly what he needed to get back in this game. And yes, you are right, it's 1-to-1 with dragons. There's just some glitches on this end of the spectator, so thank you for keeping me updated.
Yeah, not a problem. And what we see there is something that I did not know if I'd see at all this series. And that is, and I cannot stress this enough, Murk Nimbus won a fight.
Oh, Furious Doctor ends up falling. Smurf Ginger with almost a double kill. Pure Acid picking up that second kill. And now Callie's running for his life. The Ragnarok coming through means that Callie is going to fall. As soon as they take a fight, they try and extend the lead. But it is disastrous. Murk Nimbus end up giving over a lot more than they got.
I'm not sure if that's trying to extend the lead so much as that is immediately forgetting that how this game has gone thus far. Great on Boone to be able to pick up that kill, but we kind of see this again and again and again, where Nimbus gets a very small lead and they lose respect for the enemy team. Or they just go into a game default not respecting the enemy team, and they continuously get punished for that. But rather than fix it, rather than understand that maybe there's an issue with their gameplay, they just keep doing it.
And Smurf Ginger now being caught out as he disrespects Murk Nimbus a little bit, had to flash away from that resonating strike from drops, and that really put him in a bad situation, forced him to get hit by that Furious Doctor hook and follow up, so although thereby also gets out. Smurf Ginger dying right after picking up a kill in the bot lane. It's not too good a look, but yeah, like you're saying, Murk Nimbus a lot of times after these fights, they just end up not really following up the way they should or the way that they can. And in the top lane, Shadow Figure finally has enough gold. He's finished that mana immune, which means he can finally start scaling, looking for late game power that he didn't previously have.
Yeah, and unlike before, whenever Rift Herald has come up, it's kind of just been one team being able to take it for free without being contested. But for the first time this series, we see Murk Nimbus. They're not just going to give it up. They're not just going to go down without a fight. If BBC wants this, they're going to have to really fight for it.
Furious Doctor looking for some aggressive hooks. He wants to find something before this fight, because one of the ways that Murk get back in this game is going to be those death from below. So much value, and now it seems like a Boone is caught out. The depth charge is going to hit him over the wall. He's had to use his stopwatch, but Scatter of the Week hasn't been used yet, I don't believe. Boone, though, using that heal movement speed from Callie to get out. That is going to mean that Callie doesn't have that summoner, and Boone doesn't have either. He cannot position aggressively anymore. Shadowy Figure is in a dangerous situation as the Ragnarok comes out from Pure Acid, trying to follow him up, but that ultimate is actually not going to result in anything. Now, Boone is trying to land some poke. A little bit of damage going out to Oven Johnson. More poke from Shadow Figure. We talked about how Murk Nimbus have to win the fights before they even begin, and this is how they do it. They keep chunking out the members of BBC before they can go on the objectives, but BBC know that they're strong, so they just walk away and look to start the objective.
Yeah, what they're going to want to do here is they're going to want to try to keep Syndra's Scatter the Weak up, because they're waiting right now for Vel'Koz the ultimate. They're waiting for that interrupt to come out.
Oh, Shadowy Figure steals the Rift Herald, actually. I don't believe he could proc proc the eye with that, so that was just the damage. No smite coming out from Pure Acid means that's going to, although not get picked up by Murk Nimbus, deny a lot of the tempo that BBC has needed so far in this game, and a Furious Doctor is actually going to die for the Rift Herald. He decides that that is a worthwhile investment.
I can only hope that that was a decision made by the team, that they all agreed, you know what, your death is going to be worth it in this case, because I don't believe right now that Pyke was giving over a shutdown. He has not really been able to use his ultimate to much avail, and so without death from below, you're not really going to see Pyke pick up that shutdown gold, which means that he's kind of expendable, you know? That's almost what your supports are there for when they're playing on someone like Pyke. And so this Rift Herald is their chance to, hopefully, as a Siege comp will want to do, begin to break open some of these lanes. I'm guessing we're going to see Rift mid around the time Dragon comes up.
Yeah, that tempo in a bottle so powerful. Like you're saying, when Dragon comes up, you can just plop it mid lane, and then head right to the Dragon, force the enemy into a lose-lose situation. Make them choose and have to pick their poison, and that's something that we've seen over and over again in professional and amateur League of Legends. Is something that teams just aren't that good at. Being under all that pressure, sometimes they just choose, hey, I don't want to go with either of them, and now drops with a little bit of an insect, putting Electrocute in a dangerous situation. But that wasn't a fight he wanted to take, giving over his shutdown to Pure Acid, as now Boone and a Furious Doctor in a very dangerous situation. Boone doesn't have summoners. He already had to use it for his overextension earlier, and he's going to run away. Pure Acid picking up another kill, 2 shutdowns in a row, 6-2 Olaf. This guy is massive.
I am not sure what to say. It seems like every time Murk Nimbus is able to get themselves a small lead, they either don't know what to do with it or don't want to do what they should. I think that there's just been, it has felt at least like there's just been such a lack of respect for the big black clocks that no matter how far behind they fall or how many games they lose, they're not willing to change up their playstyle. They're not willing to give this team the respect they need and the respect that they deserve.
And it's fine if Murk Nimbus want to fight, you know, this often, this early, but this is not a fight that wants to do it. You haven't picked Vel'Koz, Caitlyn, and Jace to team fight. You've picked them to play around either side lanes or poke around objectives. You haven't played to look for the crazy insect kick, and I think that's one of the reasons why you can tell that Murk Nimbus is starting to feel the pressure. You know, drops, looking for some kind of initiation on a fight, some kind of lead that his team can extend, but you can't really take those initiations or expect any follow-up when a Furious Doctor isn't in position or your team just isn't ready.
Yeah, it's another instance of pulling the trigger too soon, and maybe I'm giving too much credit by saying that it's that they aren't respecting big black clocks. It's possible that they're just, you know, they're really being affected by this pressure. They're down 2-0 in finals in a best of 5. It is very possible that Nimbus is doing everything they can and that they are respecting big black clocks fully, and that the real issue here just comes to they were not ready for the team that they got.
It certainly seems that way so far. A Furious Doctor, that Rift Herald is dropping lower and lower on him, and since he's been hovering around mid, I do expect it to be dropped there after this minion wave is pushed. Hopefully that will help them crack open the base and get their composition rolling, because if it doesn't start rolling soon, Xayah will become a threat, Electrocute will become a threat, and that's just more scaling, I think, for mid-game team fights. If Murk Nimbus keep up this way of playing their own comp, I think fights will always go towards BBC, and now thereby also just keeps looking for fights, knowing he's backed up by Pure Acid, almost an item up on drops.
Almost an item up, and definitely much better position mentally. There's no way that big black clocks at this point is starting to sweat or starting to feel like they're under pressure. They're up 2-0. They're up in gold, and albeit, you know, minute, it doesn't feel minute, because constantly, even when Nimbus thinks that they have a catch or want to catch someone out, they're just not executing.
And now Evan Johnson, the call to fight is now from BBC. They're looking for something, but with all of these traps, it's very inconvenient to walk through that corridor. But if they keeping up this Baron vision, this Baron control, and they secure it, Siege Comp's not going to be able to clear that out very easily. Shadowy Figure is trying to clear off vision on the other side of the map, start getting his team in a better position macro-wise. But with all of BBC on top side, Jace being in the enemy jungle doesn't provide that much value.
No, it does not, and it's not as though Vel'Koz can just ultimate and clear this away. They have so many interrupts if he tries to do so.
Oh, and now Pure Acid is actually getting lower and lower. The Disintegration Ray is not going to come off, and a Furious Doctor misses the death from below. Now drops in a bit of a sticky situation. Manages to pop the Blast Plant and get out, but BBC looked like they were in a very, very dangerous spot, managing to get out and almost get a return kill as well.
Almost no cigar. The game's kind of at a stasis right now. And I only say kind of because that would imply that it is completely equal. But Big Black Clock still, even now, able to eke out these minute leads. They're turning it into tier 2 turrets, and they're turning it into just a deeper and deeper ward line that is allowing them to open up this map in exactly how they want.
Yeah, and unless a Furious Doctor, with this Umbral Glaive, we expect to see him have a significantly higher vision score than Thereby Also, but right now Thereby Also is leading by just 4, so it's about even. But that means the Furious Doctor's really been slacking. Umbral Glaive should be a tool that he uses to keep his team's vision score forward, and to make sure that the enemy team's offensive vision is cleared out relatively quickly. But now, he's looking for Oven Johnson, who's been chunked out. The showstopper, he decides he wants to go in, and a Furious Doctor is dropping lower and lower, manages to dash out, though, before any damage is caused. Oven Johnson now, maybe a little mispositioned. Murk, Nimbus are starting to show their claws.
Somebody called the presses. Callie was able to pick up a kill from a fight. We have not seen any of these kills actually go over to him. This game last, or even game number 1, and so being able to see him, who has primarily been one of their main carries.
Oh, Thereby Also ends up getting chunked out. The Disintegration Ray is what finishes that one off, and he's one of the main initiation tools. I mean, you have Olaf who can just run in, but Oven Johnson is down. This is a 3v5 right now. Scatter the Weak doesn't manage to actually hit onto drops, who kicks away Electrocute and then goes back into the pit. 300 IQ play from him secures the second Dragon of Murk Nimbus.
Yeah, obviously attempting to do the insect play, just not quite panning out, but it still manages to secure the dragon, and regardless of whether or not that was necessary, what that does is that evens up the dragon score. And with it being Infernal Drake, that is not something you can afford to give over to Syndra, to Xayah, to Set. And instead, by dragging that out, by ensuring that Dragon Soul is that much further away from BBC, it's giving Nimbus more time to kind of catch their footing, because it's still, you used a great analogy. You said they finally bared their claws. It has felt as if we've been witnessing a completely different team, and so if it's going to take a couple of plays like that to actually get a game, then hopefully that's what we see transpire here, because both teams are positioning right now to start contesting either turrets or that big Baron play.
And it is BBC right now who have the topside river warded more effectively, and with mid pressure and very likely losing top pressure, though, they should be able to secure this vision line and move it up into the enemy jungle even a little bit, getting vision on the red buff that right now Pyke is guarding, getting vision on the Raptor camp. Those are going to be critical for knowing enemy jungle pathing as well as securing this Baron fight. But with both top laners on the bot side, we need to note Oven Johnson and Shadowy Figure, both don't have teleport, but it is going to be Oven Johnson who gets it about 2 minutes before Shadowy Figure. So keep your eyes on that when this Baron fight does start to transpire. Which of the top laners have TP, if either?
It's also important to note that right there, that was a burst that took half of Oven Johnson's health in the blink of an eye. Shadowy Figure, with as slow of a start as he had, still being 1 and 4, he is just dealing so much damage. Now that he has his Black Cleaver, now that he has his Muramana, he actually feels like a champion is in that top lane.
Yeah, he has begun to scale, and Murk Nimbus are going to pick up another one of the tier 1s. Making sure to secure that mid turret means the map is opened up, and that means a lot for a siege comp like them. It means that they can start moving forward onto these tier 2s, forcing more aggressive plays because the map is opened up. It means a Furious Doctor and Drops can look for something a little bit more, and Shadowy Figure should have more side lane pressure. It just adds a lot of small advantages, which mean a lot for Murk Nimbus' composition.
It means the world for their composition. The only chance they have to win this game is if they start picking up the pace relatively soon, and they can't just pick it up and not be able to back up their talk. They have to start picking these fights. They have to start getting more catches like they got in the bot river before that allowed for that dragon play. If they don't start killing off some of Big Black Clocks and start ending out this game, then we're going to see more of the same of Big Black Clocks just forcing fight after fight and being able to come out on top.
Yeah, and as long as Shadowy Figure is really just applying a lot of pressure in the side lane, like we've seen he loves to do even on these tanks, it's going to mean that BBC have to keep their eye on the minimap at all times, even if they want to keep fighting, because his side lane pressure has been one of the things that allows actually Murk Nimbus to lose these fights, because a lot of times in other games, he'll get a turret out of it, he'll even get an inhib out of it, or objective control, so it might be up to him to see how Murk Nimbus is going to be able to push this advantage, and the Kali doesn't manage to get the net off. Depth Charge doesn't complete its cast, I believe, as now Shadowy Figure might be in a little bit of trouble. He's strong, he's scaling, but can he fight Pure Acid? Both of them decide to disengage, and now Boone, who manages the double knock-up, might be looking for something. Disintegration Ray is up, and Furious Doctor just seems to keep wanting to pressure this advantage. He has Bone Skewer, and he wants to push it, so I just use Feather Call. She's not going to have a lot of damage for this fight upcoming.
Yeah, and that seems to be something consistently happening, is Kali getting caught out. And whether or not it is him positioning poorly, or if Big Black Clocks are simply just constantly keeping their vision up and being able to respond appropriately, it's still a problem that needs to be huge amount of poke coming down from the Jace. That is one of the benefits of building a scaling comp on a champion with such high damage ratios, is that whenever he does finally get his power spike, even if he's lost the early game.
Now thereby also seems to maybe being caught out, in a nice play from Boone. Itemization means that he's going to be able to stay perfectly fine throughout this fight. Boone practically untouched, and Kali getting some damage off as well, but the return water gun means that Furious Doctor and Boone really don't want to follow up on that one, but the third dragon of the game seems like it's about to be going over to Murk Nimbus, and it does. The exact same play from last time. Drops, jumping over the wall, making sure Pure Acid cannot contest that dragon with the Dragon's Rage. He's been stepping up this game so far, 5-2. He's one of the reasons why Murk Nimbus were winning the early game. Every single fight he took, he seemed to be able to come out on top.
Yeah, we're starting to see some of the differences come across, and just the fact that the CS lead is, with the exception of the jungle, kind of handedly going over to Murk Nimbus. And what that does is that allows for not only an experience gap to form, but a gold gap to slowly be built there. And while it's not a lot now, it's only 500 to 600 gold. That's not because Murk Nimbus has not been rotating around the map better within the last 5 to 6 minutes. It just goes to show how monstrously ahead Big Black Clocks were up until very recently in the series.
Yeah, and now thereby also is on the hunt. Kali has used the Blast Plant to get over the wall. But if you look at the gold numbers, the richest two players in the game right now are Kali and Pure Acid, but a fight has broken out on the top side of the map. Big Showstopper's going to hit 3, and now Ragnarok, Pure Acid is going for more. Furious Doctor cannot connect that death from below, and Drops is going to be in trouble. Nice Scatter the Weak's going to cancel Shadowy Figure's dive, and Boone is looking for something in return, but the Zonia's Hourglass is going to mean Electrocute lives at the beginning, but Boone manages to get that Disintegration on point. 3 procs and true damage finish off Electrocute.
Yeah, and they are definitely going to try to position for Baron at this point, and I'm not sure, with as well-intentioned as Boone is, I don't think there's anything he can do about this. Olaf is not even going to have to go into the pit. He's just going to be able to zone for the first little while, and maybe if he had the Disintegration Ray, there's something he could do here, but without it, this is pretty much free.
We've seen them steal something before, and getting pretty close, but Olaf, Pure Acid on point with the smite this time, making sure that it can't be stolen over the wall again, but he wants to, finish off his jungle camps, wants to get skiing a little bit more, get his blue buff, so when he comes out, he can be as aggressive as he possibly can be. But as both teams reset and come onto the Rift, we need to talk about what's next. Murk Nimbus should have Dragon Soul in their sleeve very, very shortly, and Infernal is incredibly powerful with a poke comp. It means that every single bit of damage that you normally would pump out is increased dramatically. Even an auto attack from Caitlyn or 1Q from Vel'Koz will lower an enemy a lot more than before, and with pretty squishy backliners, BBC could be in trouble. But now it's Shadowy Figure who's in trouble, as he's trying to exert some side lane pressure but gets caught out by thereby also and the rest of BBC. Nice hook from him.
Yeah, a huge play by BBC, because right now we're kind of just seeing the culmination of a perfect storm for BBC. They've been waiting for Set to get one of these ultimates, or for Nocturne to get one of these engages that really just allowed them to take a team fight the way that they had done in every game up until this point. And by doing so, by finally getting that catch and killing, you're ulting Pyke onto his entire backline. Lee Sin and Caitlyn now finally caught out and just bursted down early. It allowed them to set the pace, and now we're really going to see whether or not Nimbus has come back, or whether or not they just had a lucky start to game number 3, because this is their chance to actually do something.
Yeah, this Baron power play has been immense. 4k gold, and now Pure Essence may have been caught out. Steris Gage does proc, but 1,000 gold goes over to Boone. That is what you want to see. He's going to be that much closer to his Rabadon's death cap, and as pretty much the main source of damage for Murk Nimbus right now, that is going to be huge for him in these upcoming fights, especially around Dragon Soul. This is something that Murk Nimbus need if they want to stay in this game. The value that will give is instrumental and crucial to their composition. Smurf Ginger was trying to back, but now is going to be caught out, having to use the ultimate and Feather Call, trying to get back something. Drops is not going to fall. The unleashed power doesn't go through an electrocute. Actually feels a little bit of Shadowy Figure's wrath that time. This could be Infernal Soul for Murk Nimbus.
Could be, and honestly should be. The only real person who can contest it is going to be Oven Johnson. And Oven Johnson, well, it does look like he's going to stay around. I'm not sure that he could do much. A lot of his engage, when he gets in a good ultimate, oh, never mind. It looks like Nimbus is resetting. And with the TP out, with Pyke, rushing down as quickly as he can, I think they're going to have just enough time to get 3 people there if they choose to contest this. But they might just give over the soul and say, no, we're going to figure out a way around this.
Yeah, BBC have completely given up their hopes of getting that objective. And Oven Johnson's actually going to reset, try and get a little bit beefier, likely picking up his Steris Gage for this next fight. He's going to be so important. But Shadowy Figure has picked up his 3 items. Drops has picked up a lot of his skirmishing items. Boone is working on that death cap, and Callie has finally gotten that 75% CDR that ADCs normally so desperately need, as well as picking up a quick Silver Sash. Means that he's going to be able to play a lot safer in these fights. So knowing that, and knowing the amount of damage which Murk Nimbus now have, I would actually put them ahead in a lot of skirmishes or a lot of poke plays. But if a good engage comes out from BBC, particularly from Thereby Also or Pure Acid, that could be game with an open inhibitor mid.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to agree with that. With Callie having now the 75% crit, as you mentioned, it's going to be very big on him and Boone staying alive, staying positioned in a way that regardless of how the fight starts, they can output what is needed. However, there's a reason that Big Black Clocks pick the way that they do. By getting Nautilus, by getting Olaf, Set, Syndra, so many champions that have either interrupts or ways to just get to your backline, we're gonna see Nimbus has to execute.
Boone no longer has a flash, but he's kind of on the back line of BBC. Shadowy Figure is looking like he's going to fall. Pure Acid picks that one up, but he has no more Ragnarok for this upcoming fight. A Furious Doctor is Yomusing, trying to get away. He still has Death from below, so he might stick around. He's looking for something, but now it's Drops who has to go into GA, and finally Thereby Also manages to land that hook onto Vel'Koz now using Death Charge. Drops does drop right out of that Guardian Angel, and Boone's in a very dangerous situation, being slowed right there, and finally We do see those cuts coming through. A Furious Doctor picks up one. Callie now is pumping out damage. Oven Johnson with a massive shield. But he might have just delayed the game, actually. BBC are just looking to end it, but the Feather Call is not going to come through. Now a Pure Acid is trying to get something back. He's going to fall. Oven Johnson is the only one left alive after a very cheeky play from BBC. Callie finally stepping it up. He might have 12 assists, but he's not a support.
That game almost just got thrown by, in my opinion, the ADC. Callie was split pushing top lane, and sure, we can acute that to some sort of miscommunication where his team obviously was not unaware that he was top lane, and they definitely got caught out and positioned poorly. But at this point of the game, regardless of how much gold you need, there's no reason for you to be top like that.
Speaking of top, Oven Johnson, what are you doing, my dude? Right as Baron spawns, he tries to pick up some farm mid lane and falls. He is one of the main front lines. He is one of the main initiations for BBC, and that means there's no way they can contest Baron, even if there was before. So BBC just trying to push out lanes, delay this Baron effect for basically a wave or two, and hold out until they get their 5-man squad once again.
Yeah, it is very important for Nimbus to play this slow and steady, because right now they have a Nexus turret that has almost fallen and it is exposed. All it takes is a cheeky teleport for Set to go ahead and get to that backline, or for someone to run around and just focus that turret. Get one minion in there and the game could end. And if BBC plays it right, all they have to do is continuously cancel TPs. So right now it is very important that Nimbus decides what they do and they execute perfectly. BBC can mess up as much as they want right now. They can extend this game as long as needed. If Nimbus messes up though, that's game.
Yeah, Nimbus don't have the tools to really initiate under this turret. They just have to keep poking out Smurf Ginger and Electrocute. And it seems like they know it. Shadowy Figure setting out these Pulse Blasts, but he's going to get hooked by thereby also. Massive depth charge and Showstopper means that everyone from Murk Nimbus is being stunned up, and this could be the game. 5 members from BBC are up in a double kill. Smurf Ginger's looking for something. Now, Callie has to pop the Quicksilver Sash, and Drops get caught out as well. This is a 2v5, but thereby also is getting lower and lower. Pure Acid lands the slow onto Callie, but Callie keeps pumping out damage. Now Death from below, 2, 3, almost 4. Triple kill coming through from a Furious Doctor, and now Oven Johnson has a big shield, but he's might not be able to run away, and Callie with a headshot. Now, Callie and a Furious Doctor, this bot lane has been underperforming the entire series, but when it is them against the world, they have showed up, and they might look to end the game here with Baron buff.
Hey, I have to say, that was toxic. I don't like Pyke. Pyke is such a monstrosity of a champion. It's Darius, but with extra gold for some reason, and now it is 100% upon Electrocute to stop this game. He needs to somehow land a stun, and it looks like
a Furious Doctor gets it, and that's the ace. 10 seconds on Smurf Ginger, 12 on a Pure Acid. Callie is going to try and do something here. Shadowy Figure steeping in as well. This turret and Nexus should be theirs. They're pushing for it. They do not want to go away quietly. They are positioning themselves for the reverse sweep. They want to repeat what they did in quarterfinals. They're looking for another 5-game series, and Murk Nimbus finally pick up their first win of the finals.
That was such a window. And while I don't want to take away from Murk Nimbus, we have to really look at the way that Big Black Clocks, every time they got a lead, they were able to just dominate the game. Whether it be a single team fight a dragon, or whether it be a pick at a minute and 30 seconds into the game, they have been consistently able to get small leads and just press it. And this was the one game that Murk Nimbus pulled out ahead. The one game that they got an early advantage, and it turns into a slugfest that comes down to a team fight, which if Pyke had not been able to execute, they would have lost that game. And so if they don't clean up their act coming into game 4, then I'm not confident to say that a reverse sweep is possible. We have to see Nimbus really get their stuff together.
Yeah, and this win, although it was a win, was incredibly scrappy. That being said, Murk Nimbus have come back from worse places before, and this game did show that their mental wasn't completely broken. This is the swing of momentum they needed in a series, and a Furious Doctor and Callie stepping up, particularly. These are two players who I felt underperformed very heavily this season. Callie, every single series this postseason long, he's underperformed the first 4 games. Came online the 5th one massively, but those 4 games aren't ones that you can just drop like that. So I'm glad to see that he did manage to pull off some big plays and maybe really come back into this series coming online earlier in Game 3 than the normal Game 5.
Yeah, and we're going to have to see that. Game 4 is going to be the real test as to what is going to happen here. Because, well, that's kind of obvious with it being match point that if Big Black Clocks, win, it's the end of the series. But more than that, the first 5 to 10 minutes are going to determine what's going to happen. Because, again, it cannot be stressed enough. If Big Black Clocks get the tiniest lead, if they eke out the tiniest advantage over Murk Nimbus, that's all they need to ensure a win.
And with that, we are going to be going to a short break. Murk Nimbus are looking to take this to a Game 5 as we head into a short break before Game 4 draft. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Murk Nimbus wins Game 3. Hello everybody and welcome back to Sugar Free League. Big Black Clocks dropped their first game of the series last time, so we're going to have to see how exactly the drafts are adapted so far. They've stuck pretty much to their guns so far. They're going into it. Gragas, Sejuani, and Thresh bans yet again. With Xayah Nautilus in the bot lane, they really like that 2v2.
They do, and we see Murk Nimbus actually taking away the misfortune. It was something that really punished them game one, so I'm not surprised to see it picked up now. The one alteration is that they want to find some way to shut down Electrocute. You give him Diana, he runs over a game. You give him Syndra, and he almost turns it around. Instead, though, you will see Doctor going back on the comfortable Pyke.
Yeah, he really popped off last time, that Twitch clip in chat. Picking up the triple kill at the end of a fight, 2v5, managing to pretty much almost single-handedly secure Murk Nimbus that one fight, and which led to a Murk win. So, going Misfortune, Pyke, and Vel'Koz, once again it seems like Murk Nimbus are picking up some comforts.
Yeah, last game they prioritized the Lee Sin on drops, a player who has been pretty much target banned the entire series, with these bans being pretty normal for Big Black Clocks at this point. The same 3 first bans have come through every single game, but this time they decided rather than prioritize drops, they're going to go ahead and get the Misfortune. They're going to go ahead and get the Pyke and Vel'Koz comfort. So now I'm really curious to see what drops tries to go this time around.
With the Jace banned, it lets Murk Nimbus know that BBC are probably looking for a set pickup, so they're going to ban that away and force BBC to either pick their top or mid, perhaps a flex, but we haven't seen those two really share that much of a champ pool, and it seems like Electrocute might have to dig a little deeper into his back pocket to pull something out. The Syndra is banned, his counterpick Diana is banned, so now as the timer ticks down, we're going to see him likely pick up the Talia that he just showed lane and map dominance on game 2.
Yeah, Electrocute is listed as a Platinum 2 player, but he does not play like it. He has such acute map awareness and such ability to position in a team fight in a way that allows him to not only pick apart the enemy front line, but also get to the back line whenever possible to deal damage and remain safe. And so seeing him on another control mage like Talia with so much mobility coming from her ultimate is going to be truly terrifying, as we saw him accomplish earlier in this series. Olaf is going the way of drops this time though. Big Black Clocks picked it up last game, hoping to counter a lot of the hard CC that Murk had, and I'm guessing that they're going to be using it much to the same effect.
And now, Shadowy Figure is going to have to pick up his blind pick. He's opted for Gangplank before, and it's very likely he does it again. Ornn making it through this draft phase, but he doesn't want to be on tank duty anymore. The first 2 games that they lost, he tried his darndest to keep his team in the game, but now he's on carries, and last time where he was on the Jace, he may have fallen behind early, but he showed that once he gets scaling, he knows how to navigate those team fights and split pushing situations masterfully.
Yeah, and Gangplank is a exceptional champion to put on Shadowy Figure, who has shown that his ability to know when to teleport and when to just roam. He has a situational understanding of cross-map plays that make putting him on a champion with a global ultimate, as we saw Shen in game 1, he does very well. And so putting him on something like a Gangplank that has that same global positioning ability with his ultimate, but this time getting him something that's going to provide that extra damage and that slow, the things that I think his team has really been lacking in a lot of these fights. I'm thinking that Murk Nimbus actually drafted well.
Yeah, Murk Nimbus, after games 1 and 2, we were wondering what exactly they could, pull out next. And game 3, although they struggled, they seem to be going with a similar style this time. Comfort Artillery Mage for Boon. When that Vel'Koz isn't being banned out first phase, they've picked it up every time as well, making sure Kali has a strong teamfight ADC, and Doctor has a high-impact snowbally support, or one that can at least allow his team to pick fights and get advantages off them. This really seems to be their bread and butter. Shadowy Figure as well, if he's given more of a free time in the top lane, he starts to get stronger and really show off why he's on this finalist roster that hasn't dropped a game. I mean, even when he's down 1-4 like he was on the last game with Jace, if he's left alone and not constantly kept, really just under Owen Johnson's foot, then he does start to scale back up. He does start to make these plays that you didn't expect from someone with that amount of gold. And now that he's picked up Gangplank, a champion who scales very well, he's playing into those strengths. So I do think that it's going to be up to Owen Johnson and him moving around with Electrify or Electrocute across the map. And those map plays are what are going to keep BBC in it. But if Murk Nimbus can stall out the game until Gangplank is strong, but use Olaf as more of a bridge, I think that this will go their way.
Yeah, and while it's easy for us to focus after last game on a Furious Doctor, who is so often such a fantastic catalyst for his team, especially on a champion like Pyke, who has such a good ability to roam and get around the map and cause plays to happen, we would be foolish to not mention thereby also, who honestly has just been smurfing this entire season, not just this series, but even last game. He facilitates so much for his team. He makes so much happen, keeping Smurf Ginger and Electrocute alive, engaging, catching people out. Even in the last game alone, he caught out Jace in the bot lane, almost ensuring that they could get the dragon and prevent Dragon Soul from going the way of Murk. Constantly, he is a player who is willing to take as much of the team's weight as they're willing to put on him, and he executes. This is not a man who folds under pressure, thereby also is genuinely making a really good argument for himself, being perhaps the best player on his team.
Yeah, we were talking about it before we went live. He and Electrocute have been popping off this mid-support synergy, and the trust that thereby also puts in his team when he seems to always be the first initiation. Pure Acid's champ pool means very likely he's not going to be a Jarvan or Sejuani or even Gragas looking for these picks, because he's playing Kayn, he's playing Olaf, so a lot of times it is on thereby also and his Nautilus or other hook champion like Leona to be able to start these fights, and every single time they seem to go fantastically for BBC. It's when thereby also is caught out that Murk Nimbus are able to really exploit that lack of engage and clear shot calling.
Yeah, but if we want a good follow-up, I mean, Owen Johnson has proven this series that his Kled is impeccable. He knows how to time his mounts, he knows when to ulti, he knows how to help his team get into the position they want to get into. So as long as he is able to trade well and not fall behind Shadowy Figure, which you're not, realistically, you shouldn't fall too far behind a Gangplank in laning phase. This, I know that we're talking about Nimbus having such a good draft and such a good composition, but I cannot count Big Black Clocks out at any point in time, just the way they've been playing.
You never can. This team is so action-packed. They make every single minute of every single game feel like you're in gold solo queue. I mean, they never stop fighting, but it's always with a purpose, it seems. They're never just fighting to fight, they're fighting for something, whether it be they need advantage around Dragon to help push their vision lineup, or whether they just really need to push their comp now before it falls off. And every time it seems to work, they know the limits of their champions so well, and what they lack in more traditional drafting or team composition, they always make up for in execution on these comfort picks. But we're going to have to see how exactly they manage to pull this game off. Murk Nimbus are trying to make sure the tempo swings their way as we head into Game 4. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
welcome back. Game 4 of the Sugar Free League Finals starting up now. Big Black Clocks is leading into this game 2-1, but Nimbus finally able to get a chance of hope. They just took game 3 away from Big Black Clocks, and while the game was extremely close, it was close in a game that Nimbus kind of led for the whole time almost.
Yeah, Nimbus, in this very early game, seemed to be outforming BBC quite substantially. But it is when the game starts to transition around that 10-15 minute mark where Dragon becomes more important, where Herald becomes a real point of contention, that BBC seems to come out on top in a lot of fights, and then they're able to translate that towards a mid and late game victory. But that time, Murk Nimbus managed to get the Dragon Soul, and that's what really kept them in it, was that early and mid correct contestation of Dragon and other neutral objectives.
That early and mid contest for sure, but also the 2v5 that Kelly and Doctor were able to win and eke out because of Pyke's ability to ult, because of Caitlyn's positioning, and every trap actually being stepped on. It allowed them with the Dragon Soul to output enough damage to kill 4 members of Big Black Clocks, and then eventually kill Electrocute on Syndra in base so that they could close out the game.
Yeah, that the end of last game is certainly making a lot of eyes turn towards bot side. Now, I expect a lot more from a Furious Doctor. You know, he's shown in these team fights he can really step it up, but his team might not make it there if this goes in the same way as game 1 and 2. So I need him to step it up early on. I need him to either get an advantage in lane or allow Callie to just try and solo push and then be unlocked onto the map when their Byalso begins to roam, because he didn't really match their Byalso at all last time, and that's one of the reasons why their By was able to get his other lanes ahead and the other lanes began to win.
Yeah, and unlocking Doctor is definitely a good way to put that, because he was such an instrumental part of their ability to win last game. His Pyke was out of this world, and I haven't really seen a lot of it so far in this league. But we do see thereby also missing 2 hooks in a row. I believe that he's finally starting to feel a little bit of the pressure, which I guess it's about time. When you finally lose a game in the finals, yeah, you'll start to feel a little bit stressed, but he has still just performed so well this series.
Absolutely, and now Oven Johnson once again on Kled, just forcing Shadowy Figure off his wave over and over again, and there is finally the connected hook. A Furious Doctor. It's going to take a few chunks, but neither bot lane is strong enough yet. Xayah and Misfortune don't really get that much damage right now. I think actually the Nautilus outdamages everyone else in that lane. So we're going to have to wait and see if he can land some more impactful hooks on more impactful members. But now it's actually a Furious Doctor who manages to land the Bone Spear onto their Byalso, who follows up with a hook of his own. Once again, though, a Furious Doctor, even if you hook this guy, it doesn't really mean that much until you have the damage to follow it up.
It doesn't, and I think right now we should go ahead and talk about what these teams want to do in the early game, because you are not going to expect a composition like Murk Nimbus to really pull ahead in this early game. Pyke, Misfortune, Gangplank, these are all champions that want to farm, that want to build up and scale. Even Vel'Koz, while he can at level 3 start to output a lot of damage, that's not what he wants to do. And so they're really just going to want to make sure that they can farm up safely and that they can get to this mid game and probably just make sure that they're in a position to contest the Dragon.
Thereby also, yet again, finding a Furious Doctor, but nothing's going to come of it. And I do kind of want to contest one point you make. While Furious Doctor's Pyke is incredible in the late game, I think that what really is going to ensure that Murk can win this game and move on to a Game 5 is his play once that Death from Below comes up, because that is the tool that will accelerate his team to a point where BBC should not be able to fight them. So I think he really needs to be unlocked once he hits level 6 as opposed to waiting later on. But I completely agree with you. Unlike last time, Murk Nimbus don't really have any tools to fight early other than Drops, who hasn't shown up in any lane yet.
And honestly, how can he? Olaf doesn't have a whole lot of opportunity to get in ganks, and while his axes are fantastic at when they land as a slow, they're not really something that you can gank at any point in the lane. It's not like a Zac who can come in with a knockup from any angle, or a Rek'Sai who can come over a wall unexpected.
Oh, what a bone skewers forcing out the flash from Smurf Ginger, and now the follow-up hook is there. Oh no, a Furious Doctor is burning low. The ignite and the feather is enough. First blood goes over to Thereby also. We were praising him so much, saying a Furious Doctor needed to have a better early phase, needed to have a better pre-6, but this time he gets caught out. And although the kill goes over to Thereby also, that does mean that the first kill goes over to BBC's bot lane, which is a force that has had a lot more pressure this game than this series than Murk Nimbus's.
Yeah, for sure, and that's the kind of trade that we can honestly expect. And that, while that's no hate towards Murk Nimbus, it's just Thereby also is so good on that Nautilus. And Nautilus as a champion is just so strong. His ability to lock people down, all he needs to do is land his autos, and he's going to be able to just snare you in place. And when you're someone like Pike, who's only
Pure Acid now seems to be the Bone Skewer! A Furious Doctor paying revenge, and Electrocute falls as well. 2 for 1 from Murk Nimbus as they say thank you for the leash, BBC, but we'll be taking that one. They pick up the Infernal Dragon.
Yeah, and that was unexpected. We haven't actually been able to see Nimbus punish BBC at all in early game for the past couple of games. And while the argument, of course, could be made, well, hold on. Last game, they were able to get small incremental leads. Yes, but not in a way that came from them abusing the mistakes of BBC. It came from them picking a fight and just having a better composition. But this one was them catching Kayn out, and they abused that. They caught Talia out, and they abused that. They are finally starting to take advantage of the mistakes that BBC is making, and more importantly, BBC is finally starting to make mistakes.
Yeah, and I do agree that it's not as much BBC making mistakes as much as it is Murk Nimbus now are punishing them. Furious Doctor, even though he dropped early on, finally challenging Pure Acid, as well as drops, challenging Pure Acid when they go for just that standard, oh, we gotta kill bot lane, now we go for Dragon. You don't have vision control, you don't have as much mid-prio as you need. You guys don't have ultimates yet, nobody did, and so it's the scrappier fight from Murk Nimbus that ends up coming out on top.
And so one positive thing for Big Black Clocks at this point is that they don't have to worry about Nimbus getting another Infernal Soul, because that's the first dragon to go this time around. But we did talk briefly how Nimbus wants to unlock their key players. Pike wants to hit level 6, Callie wants to get some early kills, and we want to see the top side of the map kind of just scale into their power spikes. But what do we want to see from Big Black Clocks? What is their win condition for this game?
A lot of it is going to be how Oven Johnson and Electrocute, the two kind of star solo laners of this team, being on the map. We keep using the term unlocked onto the Summoner's Rift, but it really does apply to a lot of these members. Electrocute needs to use this Weaver's Wall to catch out Shadowy Figure, force out a flash, or abuse Kallian, a Furious Doctor who don't have a flash on the bot side. We need to see Oven Johnson using that charge somewhere on the map to initiate fights as we head into the mid-game. Everyone's getting their ultimate, and in the short term, I think that favors BBC in these skirmishes as long as they pick their fights correctly.
I think it favors BBC in these skirmishes due to the fact that Talia has what's almost arguable as a built-in TP. Her ultimate will allow her to get to fights that are very far away in a very short amount of time. And while it's not a global ultimate, it's still a half the map. And as a mid laner, that's giving you access to these lanes. As long as you are allowed to pick the fights you want as BBC, you can almost guarantee that Talia will be there. And so that's what they have to do.
Thereby also finally hits the death charge onto Callie, who doesn't get rooted up, but out comes the Zarya ultimate and an auto attack securing that kill for him. Callie has fallen. No more bullet time, and thereby also is the one who's caught out. But Shadowy Figure is trying to look for something on the return. Electrocute has the Weaver's Wall. Can look for something a little cheeky if he really wants, but Boone is waiting. The Artillery Mage's range is so far. That Disintegration Ray could obliterate Smurf Ginger if he walks up too far in a 1-for-1, but Which team did that really favor? If Oven Johnson gets caught out here, the knockup does not land, but he's looking to get out using the charge. He's going to fall and dismount. He's going to have just a little bit of movement speed bump, but that's not going to be enough. Ragnarok means that Drops is going to look for something and forces out a flash, actually, of Oven Johnson. And now a Pure Acid yet again seems to be caught out, hooked out of the wall. And those barrels are dealing so much damage, and a massive, I mean a massive Pike ultimate. Yet again, a Furious Doctor is paying dividends for his team. Shadow Figures under turret, but he's not going to drop until he walks back under double kill, going over to Electrocute, giving him the gold he needs, as this fight seems like it's finally disengaging. But it's Murk and Nimbus who come out of that fight on top because of all those cuts generated.
Because of all those cuts generated, because of all that gold that Pike was able to facilitate for his team by being able to land that ultimate under turret. Well, yeah, we are looking at the fact that Nimbus is ahead in kills. That just puts so much gold around the map right now. Even if he gets those kills, his team is the one who's really reaping the benefits.
Yeah, it is looking pretty rough right now, despite only being one kill down. They're down a dragon and a substantial amount of gold because Pike has been just all around the map. Now, finally dodging thereby also's hook and re-engaging a double stun. That means that Acid is in trouble, almost dying. Kelly flashing forward, but right into a death charge means that he is going to fall. Thereby also Maven caught out, though, trying to get any kind of CC as he falls to extend his life to set up his team, but he cannot. Another 1-for-1.
Yeah, Kali plays extremely aggressive when it comes to ADC, and what I'm coming to learn is that's not a matter of whether or not he respects or disrespects the enemy players. I think he just believes that as long as he can get 1 or 2 kills, he can win any game. And so we see a lot of those super aggressive flashes that don't necessarily pay off. It's because it's a gamble, and every occurrence in his mind, it is, if I get this, it is worth it.
Electrocute has been caught out. Part of the interruption, but Boone's going to pick up that kill and also get a massive cut of money. Furious Doctor's making sure that his team is ramping up faster than before. This is what you expect to see when you're up against a Pike. And although Boone's going to get rooted, that doesn't stop the Disintegration Ray. Having to flash away from that death from below puts Smurf Ginger in an incredibly dangerous spot. He's going to have to recall. This could be more turret plates going the way of Murk Nimbus.
And what I like to see here is that Murk Nimbus is backing off. They get their advantage. It is now a race for soul. They are up 2 dragons, and rather than overcommitting as they have every other game, they're resetting and they're playing this game the way you would expect a team in the finals to play it. They're playing intelligently, and they know what they need to do to win.
And so much of Murk Nimbus' gold is on Boone. He is known for this Vel'Koz pick. It gets banned against him in several leagues, and so now finally seeing him pop off on it, gives me a sense of gratitude because it's finally working out for this guy. But a Pure Acid is really just trying to get off damage. He wants that Crimson Evolution, so he's been doing everything he can to finally get it. That's why he's been top. That's why he's been looking at a Furious Doctor and Drops. But until he gets that, he's not going to be as strong as a champion as Drops for a long, long time.
Yeah, and it's also important right now to note the fact that top lane is much closer than it's been all series long. Normally, we have seen either Shadowy being able to create a massive split push threat, forcing Oven Johnson to respond, or Oven Johnson being able to utilize his advantage through the champ pool that he's playing to get those early kills, to get that early pressure. But so far, it's been pretty easy.
Now Pure Acid wants that Crimson form, so he's showing up top lane yet again. Kled using that charge, and it seems like a Shadowy Figure's fate is sealed. Oven Johnson picks up his first kill as soon as we were praising that top side. He's going to remount and pressure more and more. Now that Kled's gotten the kill, he's likely going to be opting towards perhaps Bork, perhaps something more offensive like finishing his Ravenous Hydra and looking for more side lane pressure. But either way, I expect to see this guy begin to pop off because he's now gotten his lead. He now has his advantage. I need to see him perform.
And it's certainly still worth it to praise Shadowy Figure, because what we've seen is more of Pure Acid having to put his focus in the top lane. which is something that we've kind of come to expect at this point. Pure Acid has so much synergy with Electrocute, so much synergy with Oven Johnson, that we just expect him to be there when they need him. And certainly enough, it benefits, because right now he is trying to get that red form, which he now has. But in order to do that, you have to make sure you're dealing damage to the right champions. In this case, champions like Gangplank, like Pike, and Olaf.
Yeah, if Pure Acid did get that blue cane, I highly doubt he would have went for it anyway, but now thereby also is looking for something. Callie has to walk away into the alcove, actually manages to get a really nice dodge there, and Furious Doctor gets the death from below. So much gold being generated. He's going to get a Pure Acid as well. Double kill for a Furious Doctor. A fight thereby also picked. Finally goes the way of a Furious Doctor, using those deaths from below to generate his team even more gold than before. Meanwhile, mid lane Boone, another solo kill against Electrocute. That Disintegration Ray shreds through the enemy mid laner, and now Furious Doctor is so low, but he's looking for something. Oh, that death from below almost connected. And as they're just playing both thereby also, an absolutely incredibly executed dive from Murk Nimbus means they're going to take this bot lane turn.
You know, it almost feels like a pride sort of thing. I think I mentioned in game 1 when that third ban came out, and it's been the third ban for all 4 games so far. Take away the Thresh, because a Furious Doctor, his name is almost synonymous with that champion. And so seeing thereby also pop off so well with Nautilus, consistently able to pick fight after fight and win games for his team, Furious Doctor must have finally got fed up and just looked at his team and demanded the right to prove that he can still play Hook champions.
Yeah, and it was looking the way of thereby also the first few games. A Furious Doctor was getting punished constantly, but now he is really showing up, and thereby also, I think that was a blind hook. He just was using it to move around the map, but connecting onto a Furious Doctor could mean that this is a very dangerous place for BBC instead. Using that tempo in a bottle means that Rift Herald's going to get them priority mid and is going to force BBC into a very dangerous situation. Boone's just trying to peel back, and a Pure Acid doesn't really have the damage yet to heal from a lot of this. That means that he doesn't want to stay for Dragon. He's having to use that wall walk, having to use it just to heal up the 200 health that he can, as Electrocute not accidentally, but misses the water gun, and it seems like Dragon Pressure is going back over to Murk Nimbus. What let them win last game was their soul pressure and their ability to contest these dragons, and it seems like once again it is going to go their way. Pure Acid is looking for something on the side. We know that with Kane's dashes, with his wall walk, this should be stealable. He has Smite, but now Evan Johnson is looking in onto Boone. He has charge, but he's not going to use it quite yet. Going to use it to try and get away. Bullet time doesn't end up getting any kills, but it puts out a lot of damage. Now Pure Acid is in the back line. Shadowy Figure is forced to flash away, but Pure Acid takes it with an auto attack, and now a Furious Doctor with another double kill. Evan Johnson, though, picks up that shutdown, and Khaled's looking for something in return. Q ends up picking up another one, but that's a triple kill for Evan Johnson.
It's a triple kill for Oven Johnson, and importantly, it's a Dragon going over in the favor of Big Black Clogs. They are finally getting some of these jungle objectives, right as we were talking about how great Murk Nimbus was at securing them. But that said, it does not get rid of the fear that Soul could still go over to Murk Nimbus, because we're not looking at a composition when we're talking about scalability. Vel'Koz, Pike, Misfortune, and Gangplank are monsters of the game. And even though Olaf begins to fall off a little bit, his goal isn't to be a carry. His goal isn't even to be the one who initiates or the one who facilitates these fights. His goal is just going to be to get to Xayah, get to Talia, and force them to react. And he can do that no matter where the game state goes.
And you can see it in his itemization. Picking up the Cinderhold instead of a warrior shows that he wants to play his Olaf drastically different from Pure Acid, a much more supportive jungler. Drops is looking instead to do like what you said and be more of a disruptive force in these team fights. Now both teams are looking around topside, trying to make sure that they have vision of Baron. They don't want a sneaky take, as both these teams have a lot of DPS on them. But now it might seem like a Furious Doctor's finally getting punished. Not even standing that far up. He's just in his own jungle, but thereby also is getting his revenge.
in his own jungle, but blind in his own jungle. They have no vision there, and while I guess you don't expect the enemy team to be standing there, it's debatably a kind of cheesy play. It's still...
Cali falls in the mid lane, but now Boone might be in trouble. Shadowy Figure providing any support he can to his team, and it might actually pick up Electrocute. Murk, Nimbus have been taking fights that have been forced into fights that they should not win, and somehow they've managed to get a kill on the back end every single time.
Murk Nimbus is feels like they're finally playing the game. And while that's fantastic, we have to wonder whether or not it's too little too late. They are definitely a good team. They're proving that they deserve to be here, but it has taken them so long to catch their footing that at this point, Big Black Clocks have so much wiggle room. They lost last game, but that doesn't mean anything because now they have this game. They can make mistakes, they can learn, they can adapt, and they have plenty of time to do so.
Now, Oven Johnson and Drops are duking out a little bit, but I do kind of want to talk about Smurf Ginger. This in ADCU. This game has a little bit of what I'm sure you would like to call the Cali problem. 0-2-7. Xayah has not been able to pick up any of the kills in these team fights, and it's really showing. Bullet time is just more impactful than these feathers.
It is, but that being said, one of the main differences between Xayah and other champions, even when she's not getting kills, is her feathers still allow for her to manipulate the team fights to a degree. She can still reset herself, and at least once she can still get out a massive snare with good damage, so long as she has at least a single crit item.
And Darkpie, what's the current dragon score?
The current dragon score is 2 dragons in the way of Murk Nimbus. They have the Mountain and the Infernal. Big Black Clocks have picked up the first Ocean Drake of the game, and because of that, they have put Nimbus back a little bit further when it comes to getting that soul.
Oh, thank you, and you know what that does tell you is both these teams do want soul, though. I mean, Dragon's been taken almost on repeat whenever it can be, and you see the vision control around bot side from Murk Nimbus. So much blue vision on that bottom side of the map around Dragon, around the river, and Shadowy Visions is pushing up that line as well.
Yeah, and a lot of what I'm struggling with right now is the fact that the more I'm watching this game, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I feel like Murk Nimbus kind of drafted themselves into the same corner that they got punished on in game number 2. And while they're certainly playing it better, it still falls down to the fact that they have a lot of damage sources that are very dependent on being allowed to stand still. Misfortune has to channel that ultimate, as does Vel'Koz. And if they can't do that, then they just kind of get torn apart and their team can't actually win the fights that they want to win. It's making me...
Pure Acid and thereby also trying to find something, but now Boom with the Disintegration Ray is going to make sure Acid falls. He might have bitten off more than he can chew, though, as Oven Johnson is down the back end, picks up that 300 gold. Shadowy Figure managed to actually get autoed by Smurf Ginger. He didn't really have a way to get out of there, so he just took the road he thought he could successfully escape from. It ended up being wrong, though. Now, Electrocute may have been picked up by Drops. Drops flashing away. Seismic Shove's not going to do anything to him inside that Ragnarok, but the death from below misses. Drops pulled back. Oven Johnson dismounts, managing to dodge just a little bit of damage, and Cali is caught out. The Electrocute himself picks up that kill, and now Dragon Control is completely in the way of BBC.
Completely in the way of BBC, and also that just kind of helps emphasize my point. Yeah, Vel'Koz gets a pick, and that's great that he's able to get a kill, but he's immediately punished for it because you already know he can't leave. He's stuck there. He has to finish off the Disintegration Ray if he wants to be able to get that kill. And by doing so, they're just kind of positioning themselves in a way where they have such a high burden of execution, and BBC does not.
Thereby also maybe seems to have been caught out. Another Disintegration Ray is going to pick up that kill. Boone has been on top. You can tell this is a comfort champion for him. He knows the numbers. As soon as he sees any enemy hit that 40% HP mark, it just seems like he presses the R button, picks up a kill, and walks away 300 gold happier.
300 gold happier, and we should probably talk about how this distribution is being made, because right now, while they are even in kills and while they are even in turrets and dragons, you got to look at the fact that Nimbus is up 4,000 gold. And so when we see how that's actually distributed, even though Gangplank is behind, for the most part every other player on Nimbus is ahead, especially that Pyke.
Oh yeah, support normally doesn't have that much gold, and Pike with the Your Cut, he is literally 3,000 gold up. You can see that he has picked up so much gold this game, distributed it to his team as well, even in kills, no real plate disparity. Yet despite this, one team is up 4K. So, a Furious Doctor this pick is literally paying dividends and into the pockets of Murk Nimbus. And in return, they're able to win a lot of these fights that they normally shouldn't be. However, it is through the clear, decisive calling of thereby also Oven Johnson and sometimes even Electrocute in these fights that BBC are able to stay in it. They've just been team fighting better, I think.
A big part of what I want to mention here is the fact that Pike was allowed through a second game. If they somehow manage to win...
Uh-oh, pardon to interrupt, but Callie is getting dove a lot harder than at first thought. The depth charge is going to go onto him, and now a Bone Skewer lands on Oven Johnson. He's going to dismount and get chunked down. He's not going to be able to remount that quickly. Boone picks up the shutdown. More and more gold going into this Vel'Koz's pockets, more and more towards this next Rabadon's death cap that will make him a menace in team fights. Pure Acid is the one who started off that fight, but it was Oven Johnson who dove just a little too deep who had to pay the price.
Yeah, he did start the fight trusting his ability to go through the
wall. But thereby also this time picks out another one. Boone manages to Zonia's a lot of damage, and now Shadow Figure's on the backline. He's going to fall, but taking two with him. Now Furious Doctor meets thereby also in the rest of the on the rest of the map, and not giving thereby also a hook out of there is going to mean that he is going to give Boone 300 gold, more generation than before. Electrocute has the Weaver's Wall if he really wants to show up and defend this, but this is going to be a 2v4 Smurf Ginger. Ended up dying at some point in a mid-lane fight.
Yeah, and as we were beginning to discuss, if somehow Murk Nimbus is able to pull this game off and take it to game 5, I cannot see Pike making it through to be chosen again. He'll have to be taken away by thereby also, or he will have to be banned away. But if he is banned, what does that open up? Because they have been consistently taking away the Sejuani, taking away the Thresh. You cannot continue to do that if you acknowledge Pike as the problem. But at this point, I don't think it's possible to say it's anything else. He has 16 kill participation. He is up 4,000 gold, and we don't even know how much gold he's gotten for the rest of his team.
Yeah, very likely that they dropped a Sejuani ban. Acid's champion pool has several hard counters, including this Kayn, but we're going to have to see later in the draft phase, even if it does go to a game 5, because BBC are still in this one. They have the tools. We've seen them won a team fight 2 team fights ago, specifically around Dragon, was when they were able to catch out Boone earlier in the fight, and a Furious Doctor couldn't do anything.
I am honestly really impressed, and also dare I say flabbergasted, because I have not seen Murk Nimbus play like this in any semblance for game 1 and 2, and even game 3, when any chance they had at a lead continuously got thrown back. So I don't know what has changed that makes them feel like we're actually seeing a real team now, but they've done very well for themselves.
And if BBC keeps getting stuck in these positions, it might be dangerous for them, but they decide to just go in, thereby also fails the flash over the wall, and Oven Johnson is 1v5 in the backline. Pure is trying to get something back. He is healing so much, and he is in drops, looking to pick up that kill, does manage to get it. Now, stunning and knocking up Callie, but the Disintegration Ray drops him. Meanwhile, on the other side of the fight, Shadowy Figure with the grasp kills Smurf Ginger, and now it is Electrocute against the world. 1v4 in total, but it's Murk Nimbus who looked for the TP play. This time, they don't want Oven Johnson to be able to do something like that to them. So this time, they're looking for the fight.
A series be normal.
So we're going to go to game 5 as Shadowy Figure and Boone finish this one off. Flashing a little bit, throwing some Far Cry alterations into the fountain. This is going to be 3 postseason games in a row, the entirety of their playoff run going to 5 games, and both these teams have been here before.
I need, and I demand Fallen Artemis, the owner of Sugar Free League, the one who brought us all here today, to test that Pike's ultimate for steroids or other performance-enhancing drugs, because That is the sole reason that this reverse sweep has begun. And if Pike is not taken out of this, it might be the reason that it's allowed to succeed. Well, I'm not trying to take away from Vel'Koz allowed to go 11-3 here. This is just ridiculous.
And one of the reasons was, I think, it seemed like Murk Nimbus finally understood how to deal with Oven Johnson, and Shadowy Figure on drops finally managed to really do a lot of damage back to BBC. I mean, you saw in a lot of those fights that succeeded was when Oven Johnson managed to dive the enemy team. Him and Pure Acid were on the backline of Murk Nimbus, and a lot of it was on thereby also to peel for Smurf, Ginger, and Electrocute, and help them deal with Shadowy Figure, help them deal sometimes even with Callie, but that time, that just wasn't the reality. Thereby also fails the flash over that wall by River, and ends up him, Smurf, Ginger, and the entirety of BBC die.
Yeah, and I honestly feel like composition-wise, while there's certainly a lot of damage to be output there, I really didn't like Nimbus's comp. I don't like Misfortune and Vel'Koz both being on the same team in such a volatile game where there's so many different ways to interrupt or to just negate their ultimates. And while it did work out fantastically for them this game, and that does make a lot of my complaints moot, I just feel like if you're going to put Boone on the Vel'Koz, put Callie on another more trustworthy DPS source, or vice versa. If you're going to put Callie on the Misfortune, put Boone on a different damage output, a different consistent DPS. But by putting both of these high DPS channeled ultimate champions, they just give themselves so many avenues of failure that I just don't think that they need.
Yeah, and the only way we're going to know what exactly Murk Nimbus draft next game is by getting into it. So stick around, don't touch that browser. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Silver Scrapes is up next. back to Sugar Free League Esports. Game 5 of the final Silver Scrapes was playing as both these teams are going to head into draft phase. So far, not that much adaption, but when you go into Game 5, sometimes the stress can kind of force you to stick to what you know, but there does come the Pike. I expect that to be replacing the Sejuani.
Either replacing the Sejuani, or what I think is going to happen is we're still going to see Sejuani banned. Oh, Vel'Koz instead.
Oh.
They are just tired of Murk having their run of the map.
Yeah, Boone's extreme comfort mid laner, and it's not really one you can pick away that confidently. Electrocute's champ pool doesn't really include that in it, and Murk Nimbus opting for blue side yet again and picking up that first pick, Misfortune. This is a pick that Cali has been able to succeed on much more than other picks this series, so it's no doubt that he's been the one to secure that. And once again, BBC pick up the Nautilus. If they default to Xayah here, it could be the start of a salty run back.
It could be, but that is the big question of if they default back to the Xayah, because the only other ADC that I believe that he is confident on is Varus. And so it looks like we are getting Xayah here. They haven't locked in yet, so it could still change, but if so, then I'm not sure that I like Xayah. I don't think that I like Xayah here.
But it does get locked in, and Murk and Nimbus definitely are going to have to change their phase 1. Last time they locked in the Pike Vel'Koz, but that leaves Thresh open. One of Doc's signature picks, and it is going to go through. It not only allows him to really be unleashed, but also his allies with that Lantern. And Sejuani wasn't banned, so that means an instant almost Sejuani hover. As if this does go through, it's not as if BBC don't have the counters. Kayn is an incredibly comfort champion for Acid, but instead Victor is going to come through that, going to Boone most likely, perhaps Shadowy Figure or something especially spicy happens. But this is where BBC really have to decide what they want to do. Electrocute has counter pick, but he doesn't have the full context of the game, so it's either they want to secure their jungle a strong matchup to what they think will counter drops perhaps, or they're just going to go right into the counter pick mid lane.
That would be extremely dangerous if they did. So there's a Sejuani pick just to keep drops from getting what he wants, but I'm not sure that that's going to work out the way they want it to. Normally when you hover something like that and then pick something else, you're either trying to bait the pick or the ban, and in some cases you don't care which, as long as you get Sejuani on the other team. So with Sejuani being such a comfort for drops that they have felt the need to ban it every single game up until now, then he might be just comfortable enough on it to know how to properly counter.
And now Trundle and Gangplank are both going to be banned out, which makes me think BBC are probably going to try and secure their top lane at counter pick. They don't want to let Shadowy Figure just get an absolutely free matchup in Gangplank where he'll just be able to, even against a Kled, wait and scale out to the late game until his barrels start to deal massive damage. But that is, once again, it seems like BBC are doing that, so they're going to lock in the Taliyah. If Sejuani does manage to hit her Glacial Prisons, Taliyah should be able to pretty much instantly burst down this Victor, but it is around that level 10 mark that Taliyah also shouldn't be in lane that often, so I'm kind of interested, or pardon me, level 6 mark. So I am interested to see how exactly this pick will go out, and it is the Taliyah lock-in. Both of these teams, or pardon me, BBC, is looking very similar to last time with the exception of a Sejuani.
And you can tell how much respect they're giving Shadowy and how much necessity they're putting on Oven Johnson, because they are, again, trying their best to make sure that Oven Johnson is given the counter pick to whatever Shadowy Figure ends up taking. But I do want to touch on that Taliyah a little bit, because we've seen Electrocute really take over games as Diana, and just as well take over games as Syndra. But whenever he's on Taliyah, while his map presence is good, while his DPS is around where it needs to be, he just doesn't have the same level of presence and mastery, it feels like. And they being Murk Nimbus, have been able to kind of use that in their favor.
Yes, and now that Gangplank is banned, Mordekaiser is free and open to be picked. Murk Nimbus wanted a little bit of AP, so that's what they're going to pick up, and BBC actually go with the Set. If Set is close enough, he can unstoppable through that Death Realm, so some minor counter ability as well. I'm really excited to see how this top lane goes. We've been talking about the Oven Johnson Shadowy Figure matchup this entire time after Oven Johnson culled out Conference Diff last weekend, so I'm really excited to see how exactly this lane goes, because both junglers I do think are going to be up there. Sejuani sets an incredible top 2v2, and Olaf Mordekaiser is strong as well.
Yeah, the big questions here are going to be, who does Mordekaiser choose to ultimate? Can thereby also fall back to his level of execution on Nautilus that have gotten them to this point? And how is this jungle matchup going to go? Because we've normally seen Pure Acid go back to his comforts, the junglers that he knows, Kha'Zix and Kayn especially. I don't think I've ever seen him on Sejuani, and while he is a fantastic jungler, and I'm sure he has a decent level of execution on there, he has to really step up his game right now. This is the final possible game of this finals match of Murk Nimbus against Big Black Clocks, and I'm not sure if I favor either one right now.
Both of these team compositions are actually pretty different. Although BBC have a lot of familiar pieces, this is the first time we've seen Set with the Xayah Nautilus, and also Sejuani, this is the first time we've seen Acid picking up that, so knowing that he just really didn't want Drops to have it, or perhaps this is one of his other pocket picks. I mean, as much as we talk about how this guy is incredibly strong on off-meta picks, that could translate onto meta picks as well, so I'm pretty excited to see how his Sejuani is, even though it's a pretty traditionally boring champion. It has an incredible amount of gank assists with Nautilus, with Taliyah, and with Set, so he pretty much has his pick of any three of the lanes that he wants to get.
Yeah, and knowing that the momentum is currently in the favor of Murk Nimbus, and their game 4 being much cleaner and more, actually almost felt one-sided in comparison to game 3, we've seen what Big Black Clocks do with the tiniest advantage. If they get anything to grab onto, they are able to just dominate a game. So with these two comps, now that there's no real questions, what are you expecting from each side? How can Nimbus assure that they win game 5 and they complete the reverse sweep, or how can Big Black Clocks kind of put a stop to that and prove that conference gap is real?
I expect Boone to, like he has pretty much every game so far, not run it down. If the mid stays consistent, that will be a key piece of allowing Olaf into the other lanes, because if Taliyah Sejuani can't get ahead, that means that Sejuani is wasting time there, and I think that Acid's actually going to be in mid quite a bit, but Olaf needs to be in top side to fight with his Mordekaiser and try and get Mordekaiser ahead. Olaf needs to be in bot side so that this bot 2v2 that's been going the way of BBC every single game doesn't keep doing so. Because if Xayah and Nautilus get ahead more so than other times, it's going to mean that Kelly and a Furious Doctor are no longer in that situation where they can fall back on Pike Gold just in case, with every kill being twice as much as it normally would be for an ADC if they pick it up. So I expect to see both junglers ganking top and bot a lot, but I do think that Drops is going to focus significantly on making sure his mid stays alive if Sejuani is hovering around there a lot.
Yeah, we have seen that Callie, despite Misfortune being so oriented towards her ultimate as far as outputting damage, he is very good at utilizing Misfortune's passive and his Q in order to get out as much damage as possible. He constantly goes press the attack, which is what you expect on the Misfortune, but he plays it in a way where he can punish Smurf Ginger whenever Smurf Ginger steps out. But Smurf Ginger has shown that even though we've kind of talked about him as if he is the weak link of Big Black Clocks, he can still do what he needs to do. He can get forth the damage that he's required to get out. He can get his feathers in a way that kind of lets his team pull ahead. But right now, my big question is, does Big Black Clocks, without a guarantee of a consistent Xayah, have the damage output to win team fights?
I completely agree. Pure Acid has been carrying a lot of these fights in terms of damage a lot. With Kha'Zix, with Kayn, even with Hecarim, those have been one of the reasons why BBC have always managed to pull ahead. They have that extra damage threat and they've used it spectacularly, but now a lot is going to lie on Smurf Ginger, especially in the late game, especially as we get into the later stages of the mid game, to have his 3 items and not die in these fights. And it is going to be difficult. Mordekaiser's going to want to Shadow Realm you, Thresh is going to want to hook you, Victor and Olaf are going to be looking for you the entire time. I mean, everyone is going to be gunning for this Xayah, so this is Smurf Ginger's game to show why he is on this final roster. This is his game to show why he is here and deserves to win finals.
Yeah, and honestly, this is Big Black Clock's ability to do it. They were, without a doubt, the underdogs, not just for this game, but for the entire quarter, semi, and now finals. They're the lowest ranked solo queue team. They're the team that literally had to win a tiebreaker just to make it here. And now that they are here, they have been shutting everybody up. They have been proving that they deserve to be here. And this is their final chance, their major chance to prove that solo queue, when it comes to competitive vibes, does not matter. And with that, we're going to go ahead and go to a short break before we begin game number 5, the final match between Murk, Nimbus, and Big Black Clocks. welcome back to the final game, no matter what happens now, between Murk Nimbus and Big Black Clocks. We have seen such a... I mean, I guess it's the Nimbus curse. They're always going to go to Game 5, but they have begun to enact a reverse sweep over Big Black Clocks, who came out Game 1 and 2 looking beyond dominant. It did not look like it was even going to be a series.
No, not at all. I mean, the first two games were stomps, just like you're talking about. Both, I believe, sub 30, one of them sub 25. I mean...
23 minutes and 9 seconds in game number 2.
Yeah, they were both absolute masterclasses on how to, just wrap these games up. But ever since then, Murk Nimbus, after their close fought victory in Game 3, Game 4 they showed that they were favorites for a reason. They came into this undefeated because of their ability to never give up in a best of 5 and to constantly push for the win, and now they're looking for the reverse sweep in finals.
I'm not going to say that I have an insider source into Murk Nimbus's mental, but I'm not sure that they are as ironclad as we believe. I think it's just that they tilt so much that they just go complete round circle and they're calm again.
That's what the first two games were, is they were resetting all the way around. And then 35 minutes, Game 3 was they finally hit noon at the clock again.
Yeah, they finally reset, and thank God they did, because now we have a series. This is Game 5 of the Sugar Free League Finals, and not a lot of teams can say that they would be good enough to get here. I mean, right now we see two compositions that, honestly, in my opinion, kind of favor Murk Nimbus here.
Absolutely. Murk Nimbus over the past two games have been speeding up their tempo as well. A Furious Doctor has been popping off the last two games, and now that he gets his comfort pick, his Thresh that has been banned so often against him, I expect to see him perform even better than before. Callie as well, on this Misfortune, one of his comforts. Really expecting a lot, but one of the question marks I do have is going to be Boone on this Victor. I've not seen Boone on Victor, although it falls in his champ pool style. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm interested to learn how exactly he can perform on this champ.
Well, much like Callie and Doctor, Victor is one of his comfort picks. Oftentimes their compositions involve either the Vel'Koz or the Victor. I think the major question here for me is Shadowy on this Mordekaiser. I don't think I've seen him on that champion too much, but I have seen Oven Johnson on set, and he is an absolute monster. He knows when to ulti, he knows how to trade positively, and he actually itemizes correctly. We saw earlier in this league there was a set player who had pulled greatly ahead, and yet they built full tank for some reason. But this guy isn't just, a lucky break gets him ahead. He understands how to play the top lane.
Oh yeah, Oven Johnson is making just a case for himself in this series so far, and Pure Acid now, shorting his full clear, something that we see quite a bit from Sejuani's, as they want that level 6 as soon as possible. Instead to go topside, but a heads-up ward from Shadowy Figure make sure that he's able to avoid that early impact. And now bot lane, a Furious Doctor lands his hook onto Thereby also, but Thereby also is looking to return as well. Dredge lining and auto-attacking a Furious Doctor, extending that trade, but only one jungler is on the bot side, and it is Murk Nimbus's drops. He's hovering around here, making sure that if Thereby also does find a good hook, he's able to retaliate.
Oh, but there won't be a good hook coming because they saw drops enter. They have a ward placed at the tri-bush, and so drops is not there unbeknownst to Big Black Clocks. Instead, that is why they backed off. They said, you know what, you can get priority in this lane, that's fine. But looking towards the mid lane, we actually see that right...
Oh yeah,
hey,
another fight, yeah, but
almost.
A Furious Doctor is just looking for anything he can get.
Yeah, but what we do see is that Vel'Koz, or not Vel'Koz, I'm sorry, Victor, it actually is still half mana. So unlike Talia, who's kind of extremely low right now, Victor is he's positioned in a way to where if the jungle comes by, they can actually fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And how the junglers play around mid was something that I wanted to keep my eye on. Sejuani really does not want to be there. She wants to be bot or top, because Boone has cleanse. There is no melee auto attacker or good gank assist if Acid comes down, unless Electrocute manages to land a nice seismic shove. So, I do expect Pure Acid to be everywhere else on the map, so drops not being able to impact that lane that much, and Boone with some great mana and resource management is something that I think is showing up really well for actually both teams.
Decently well with the resource management, because what we do see here is Talia recalled a little bit early, sacrificing on what she could potentially buy, where Victor stayed and trying to make sure
Oh my gosh. Game 5 of the finals is going to be a 5v5. Although BBC managed to pick up the kill, Mordekaiser doesn't engage at all, so what was going to be a 5v5 fight, it seems BBC managed to just force the dragon, take it, and walk away.
Yeah, there's a lot of question here as to whether or not that first dragon is going to dictate this game, because if I'm not mistaken, first dragon has dictated the winner in every other match.
Yeah, the dragon prio in all of these has been critical, just as critical as Soul has been. In a lot of these victories is because a team has that massive buff that they're able to pull ahead. And once again, we do need to notice Electrocute has been very liberal with his mana usage. Normally, you'd expect Victor to be more mana hungry in this lane and Talia to get a lot of value, but it's those lasers and their potency in wave clearing. And when Talia lost her AoE on her Threaded Volley, it did take away a lot of that pressure that she used to have, a lot of that lane pushing ability. So now Victor is actually outshining her in this early wave clear, which is going to make it very difficult for her to Weaver's Wall around the map now that she's hit 6.
Yeah, and Talia was able to get early recall out while she, again, returned without the items she probably wanted for that first recall. It did allow her to be there for the dragon, which allowed the dragon to be taken quickly enough to where the 5v5 that almost occurred was never actually going to happen.
Thereby also positioning a little aggressively as drops recalls, but it does all end up going even both ways. And thereby also, we were talking about how excellent he's been so far this series, how not only in lane, but when he's put onto the map, how he shines as a support player and being the main initiation tool in a world where Acid and Oven Johnson normally don't have the ability to do that just because of the champions they select. But now that Acid is on Sejuani and has that Glacial Prison, Arctic Charge, all of her abilities, you name it, are fantastic in starting these team fights, I believe. It might actually relieve a lot of the pressure on Thereby Also's shoulders.
Yeah, I would say that's a safe bet, and you can definitely tell that the priority for the two teams is not the same. Xayah immediately goes back to lane, wanting to push that 4 CS advantage over Kali as best they can. But Nimbus just sends their full bot lane to this Rift Herald, saying that they're really right now, they just want to go ahead and lane swap and ensure that they can start opening up the map. And I don't blame them. I do think that, again, they have the better composition. Once they get to the point that they can start team fighting and they can start actually deciding how they want to play this game, I think that they're just better off to do so.
I agree, and as long as this Xayah doesn't get irreparably ahead up against Shadowy Figure, which is not going to happen now that Xayah is going mid, this Rift Herald is going to be a massive positive, especially if they are going to 3-man at top lane. Oven Johnson, a shining star for BBC, might be in quite a pickle, as now Kali's going to be picking up all of this solo gold. Both ADCs are just getting a lot of gold in their pocket, which is something that I think favors Kali a lot more because of his performance throughout the series so far.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure that he gets all of that gold. I do believe that regardless of your positioning on the map, no matter how far away you are, if you are the one who procs the Rift Herald, you still get gold as if you were present.
That is correct. Now, finally landing that seismic shove onto Boone, but it's not going to be enough damage. Now we're finally starting to see the downside of Pure Acid's playstyle. When he is not giving over his blue buff when he's playing Sejuani, he's not giving over his blue buff to his mid laner. That is a very, very suboptimal place to be as Electrocute. It means he's constantly having to back, constantly having to use a lot of his mana in order to keep up with Boone, who has drops his second blue buff every single time.
Yeah, but that being said, Pure Acid is a very aggressive jungler. Part of it is of him not giving that over. It's just him wanting to guarantee a level advantage over drops, and I think there's almost a certain level of confidence there, saying that regardless of how our laning phase goes, I think I'm the better jungler, and so I'm going to go ahead and take what resources I can.
Yeah, certainly. It's a play style. I don't know how well it fits with Sejuani's, but it's a play style. And now that he has Cinderhulk, Sejuani does have quite a bit of damage, especially if she stacks her permafrost. Those procs can deal so much damage, and if you double those up on champions, they sometimes, if she gets ahead enough, she can solo kill a backliner, or at least put them in a position for her team to follow up towards the end. And an amazing hook from there by also the Glacial Prison does end up not connecting, but only because Boone has to flash away. But that was 2 ultimates for Boone's flash. Now it's going to be up to Boone to prove that this flash and losing it in this before this team fight is not going to be a detriment. And an incredible hook onto Xayah is going to mean that her feathers fly. Is the only way she can actually avoid the bullet time, but so far it seems like it might be BBC who get out of this fight ahead. Now, though, Pure Acid is caught out in the Death Realm with Shadowy Figure. Arctic Charge might not be enough to escape this one. Down goes the Gravity Field. He's going to try and do something, but Boone picks it up. The laser comes right across him and picks that kill up. The first one for Boone and the first one for Murk and Nimbus.
Yeah, and now that is the second dragon going over to the big black clocks. They started off with the Infernal, now picking up the Cloud Drake. Definitely getting some of the resources that they want in order to execute their game. But as this game goes on, the burden of execution for their composition is going to go up exponentially. They're going to need Smurf Ginger to step up. They're going to need Electrocute to be able to output the optimal amount of damage in every fight. And Oven Johnson, exactly as we saw there, is going to have to set these fights up for his team. If they cannot all execute at the level that's being expected of them, then Murk Nimbus is kind of positioned to just stall the game out until they're ready.
Absolutely, and Oven Johnson going with this Bork build means he's not going to be as chunky as quickly. So he's really wanting to stay in the side lane and beat down this Mordekaiser, but so far it's been Mordekaiser's who has been winning the side lane fights. And now Oven Johnson is looking to challenge that idea as he takes these short but sweet trades and a nice W on the back end, which is going to go even more in his favor, forcing Shadowy Figure to use that refillable potion to stay up.
Yeah, and now that we have seen that every single time a dragon is up, there will be a fight around it, I'm guessing since Rift Herald is just the next timer, due to how quickly they use the first one, we're going to see a fight happen around this Rift Herald. And while I am saying...
Oh, and Boone actually sidestepping the already missed ultimate from Pure Acid, but will it even matter? He's getting lower and lower. The Electrocute procced by Electrocute and also the Ignite. Boone trying to walk away, but the fadeaway is not going to happen. That feels so bad if you are BBC.
That was a fantastic sidestep, cleanse, Q. Boone just played that as optimal as you can in a 3-man dive. But I do think that regardless of how we're discussing, you know, BBC's composition just gets harder and harder to utilize. If they keep pressing this dragon advantage and they're able to get ahead enough in the early game, it's not going to matter.
Oven Johnson using this Bilgewater Cutlass to stay very healthy in these trades, but Shadowy Figure just has a little more range than him, so that's one of the things you need to keep your eyes on when you're looking at this top lane matchup. And that is the fact that in isolation, Shadowy Figure with the Ninja Tabby is actually coming out on top substantially over or exactly a 20 CS gold, 20 CS lead. And also, if you look very closely, you'll notice that Pure Acid and Drops really haven't been up there that much, and that was something I was talking about. Set Sejuani is such a powerful 2v2 that is really early on where Pure Acid should have gone. That is where Pure Acid should have been, but the 2 or 3 times he went, it was warded out. So, that's not been entirely optimal for Oven Johnson trying to get his feet on the ground.
No, it has not, but I mean, I don't think that they're in any rush to do much. Right now, they kind of understand that they are the ones who control the pace. They're the ones who kind of are going to dictate when the next big team fight happens. And whether or not that happens around Rift or a turret or Dragon, it's kind of up to Big Black Clocks to pull that trigger. And so as long as they do so carefully, as long as they understand the current state of the map before engaging, I don't think they're really in any risk, as of yet at least, to start losing. Unless, of course, they pick a really bad fight. If they pick something where they're not getting on top of Victor or Misfortune right at the beginning, then they're kind of putting themselves in a bad position.
Speaking of Misfortune and Victor, Victor has now completed his item, and Callie has finished his first Essence Reaver, but now Smurf Ginger may have been caught out, has to flash, and the feathers go through so many members of Murk Nimbus, but the bullet time is going to pick up thereby also. Furious Doctor is in quite a bit of danger, uses the stopwatch, uses the flay, tries to spare some time. Now Oven Johnson looking for drops, actually drops almost gets out of there, but the grit is enough to push him over the edge. Electrocute caught in the Shadow Realm, but drops, and Shadowy Figure is now in a little bit of trouble. The Showstopper is going to pick that kill up, and now Boone is 1v2, but with the Chaos Storm, he might actually do it, and he does. A double kill for Boone. 2 shutdowns. He comes out way on top.
So if we look at that fight, I mean, it's obvious to look at just the numbers. 5 for 4. Yeah, of course, Nimbus wins. But you also have to look at that gold allocation. Sejuani getting these kills does not do anything for their team. However, Victor getting shutdown gold, that's huge. Misfortune getting a double kill, that's huge. And so right now, Nimbus, who we thought was just going to take their time, they're in the position to really accelerate.
Especially if thereby also falls one of the main initiation tools. And really, it seems like shot calling carries for BBC has fallen before the dragon is up. And by taking this dragon, it provides much more value than just a mountain. It delays the soul of BBC, and that is something that they've considered a win condition the entire series.
Yeah, now that they're picking up the first Mountain Drake, that's huge for Nimbus. It kind of is, I mean, in any competition, you have to take mindset into consideration. And while I might be jumbling over my words, this is still something really important to notice, because when a team starts seeing the fruits of their labor, and they start seeing that, hey, we're not just ahead in gold and kills, we're actually starting to finally win out on these objectives that they probably felt they should be getting all along, well, that allows them to start playing with more confidence. And once you're playing with that confidence that you need, is when you can actually execute.
Absolutely. But this game is actually so far giving me some flashbacks to our semifinal match, Handsome Esports versus BBC. It was BBC who lost a lot in the early game, but once it got to that 30-35 minute mark, despite having the less than optimal late game team fighting comp, it was picks like this from thereby also that managed to keep them in it. Now Bullet Time's going to return, and thereby also is going to drop extremely low. Hook is going to be flashed and drops flashes as well, trying to pick up the kill, but thereby also getting out barely. Drops, though, is also incredibly low, and Electrocute knows it. He's looking for something as Smurf Ginger pushes in this wave. So many ultimates are up. Glacial Prison in particular. Watch how Pure Acid uses that ability if he looks for a fight here.
That is the first hurt of the game going over to Murk Nimbus. There's just been a huge series of events right now, and you are right. In game number 5 of last week's semifinals between Handsome Esports and Big Black Clocks, despite their massive disadvantage, Big Black Clocks were able to hold on, and they were just able to out-team fight the enemy team. However, Handsome Esports, in all honesty, it didn't feel like they were a coherent team. A lot of their team fights were all over the place, and it seemed like their ability to prioritize was just non-existent. And it feels, although I'm not sure who, it feels like both of these teams have a pretty good shot caller in order to dictate how these team fights go. And so I feel like the major deciding factor in this series is just going to be, can Boone stay alive? The gold is on him, the pressure is on him, and while Misfortune is huge, he is kind of the one who's been, staying alive to finish these fights.
And there isn't a Kane or Hecarim or Kha'Zix this time to pick him off. Pure Acid is not going to have any of these crazy flank opportunities or just massive DPS moments to burst down a carry of Murk Nimbus, because he's playing Sejuani. He's a frontline, and yes, he should be looking for some side angles of Glacial Prisons, but it's not his job to sit in a bush somewhere behind enemy lines before stealthing in and getting a kill. He is here to, support the team, and I think that could be one of the big disasters that might hit BBC. One of the things that I can tell they haven't had a lot of practice with is playing with this type of tank jungler. So I am worried that as we go later and later into the game, the playstyle gap that Pure Acid normally has to execute on is going to rise.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really like about BBC in most cases, something that we talked about in game number 2 actually, was their ability to execute on kind of unconventional compositions just due to the fact that they're playing on comfort and they're playing on what they know. But now that they picked the Sejuani just to keep drops from getting it, I mean, that's great if you can execute, and that's great if you have experience on it. But if you're just picking it to counter it, then all you're doing is putting yourself in a 4v5 situation.
Oven and Johnson, Shadowy Figure, duking out on the bot lane. Shadowy Figure, like a lot of games that we've seen him in actually, has been slowly but surely building up a gold lead in this side lane. Now, BBC finally using their tempo in a bottle, trying to see if they can take down the top turret before Rift Herald lose some health on it, but that doesn't quite happen, so one of the disadvantages of Shadowy Figure being in the side lane right now might mean that if he gets caught out here by a Weaver's Wall, he's in a lot of danger because it'll be for nothing. With a Rift Herald top, he never should win these team fights. Now, Oven Johnson actually pulls Shadowy Figure back under the turret. His shield is not enough. An incredible flash from both of them. And meanwhile, a team fight on the top side. Boone cleanses the Glacial Prison. He's staying alive. He's pumping up the numbers that Chaos Storm is going to almost pick up thereby also. Callie's the one who ends up getting that one. 1-for-1 across the map.
I gasped. I, as the children say, was shook. Flash was just so clean. It was just so well timed. Oven Johnson, I keep convincing myself that I can explain away his ability to play these games. Oh, he's on set. Oh, he's on Kled. But then he does these like small, just like mechanical plays that show that he has the reaction time and he has the understanding and he has the ability to execute that make me realize that I'm just being a hater, honestly. He is so good.
And now, Shadowy Figure may have actually forced thereby also out of the fight, but that means that he's not there initially. He doesn't have the Death Realm, but a massive bullet time is going to chunk out Electrocute, chunk out Smurf Ginger, who walks right back into it. Almost killed by the laser. And now, BBC are incredibly low. Their health bars are blinking. Now Murk Nimbus are going to just take this dragon and match, I believe, BBC in the dragon department.
You are correct. The difference being they have 2 Mountain Drakes. So unlike BBC, who's kind of split theirs up, the first one being Infernal, second being Cloud, Nimbus is actually starting to stack their benefits at this point. And that's huge due to the fact that if Murk Nimbus gets Mountain Drake, then I'm not sure that they can lose game anymore. The burst potential that you have of catching out the Misfortune or the Victor is gone. And instead you're replaced by a team that even their squishy backline is a tank in their own right.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to bring up is Electrocute. This is a player who the entire postseason has been an incredible carry for BBC. And it's not to say that this game he has been less than impactful, but as this Talia, I expect him to be having a lot more map pressure than he has. I believe I've seen 1 Weaver's Wall this whole game, maybe 2. So seeing Boone picking up a lot more golden kills than Talia early game before even 25 minutes is extremely surprising to me. But now, thereby also is looking for something, rooting up a Fury Stalker, who actually managed to land the hook onto Electrocute, then the Chaos Storm as well, following up. Electrocute is getting lower and lower, and is going to fall with the bullet time. Oven Johnson tries to return, but that bullet time is wreaking havoc in those small corridors. You just can't fight Callie right there. Double kill for him, as Drops picks up a shutdown, and Boone is looking for thereby also just an auto attack's gonna pick that up. A 1-for-5 Callie put out damage numbers that fight, and that's gonna be a Baron for Murk Nimbus.
You know, this exact same thing happened game number 1. However, the only difference was game number 1, it happened at the Dragon Pit. It happened because Electrocute on that Diana was able to get in to Murk Nimbus's backline, ulti, and get everyone grouped together for a Leona Misfortune combo, and really just executed a fantastic play to facilitate an ace. This time, it was a team not respecting Misfortune, not respecting the Victor, and just clumping in a corridor made even smaller by the mountains.
Absolutely. And these next dragon fights are going to be critical, because if I'm correcting my thought, with this Baron, Murk Nimbus should begin just pushing in lanes and choking out in multiple different places across the map BBC, which means this dragon should pretty much be theirs. But if BBC decide to challenge it, they could be in a world for hurt if they don't get on Kali or Boone. Both of them are putting out so much damage in these fights. Even Shadowy Figure, with his ability to just remove one of the main damage threats from BBC, has been putting in a lot of work. Now, without Electrocute being that strong, it is once again up to Smurf Ginger. He's hit 2 items on Xayah, and he needs to be the one who's pumping out damage, although he isn't even positioned for it yet. So the carries of BBC are in very dangerous positions.
Yeah, I'm not normally one to buy into rumor or even to propagate rumors, but they do say that Boone is playing all 5 roles on all 5 computers, and that would explain the execution of that team fight and the synergy. But that just gives so much more credit towards Big Black Clocks, because as easy as it is to look at a team that has the lead in gold and Baron and say, okay, yeah, they're probably going to start closing out, you literally cannot count out Big Black Clocks, because they've been in a similar, if not worse, position, and they won in order to secure their final spot. They are such a good team at playing from behind. They just have mental fortresses.
Yeah, and so Murk Nimbus seem to know that they have to take this one incredibly slow and steady, because if they push too hard, then the seesaw will hit them right back in the face. Smurf Ginger, once he does get his itemization, and is going to be an absolute menace, and thereby, pardon me, Electrocute still does a lot of damage. It's just that he hasn't managed to hit a seismic shove so far. So if he manages to get one of those onto Kali, MF should be blown up.
You're making a really good point, because I don't think we're giving enough credit to BBC's draft. Set, regardless of how far behind you fall, and even if he's a little bit rough on it, the Sejuani are just able to disrupt a lot of what Murk Nimbus wants to do. So even though Murk Nimbus has such a lead, it is still on them to kind of pick their perfect fight if they hope to close out this game.
A Furious Doctor finds thereby also the kill goes over to Drops, as Pure Acid is in a lot of trouble. He's forced into the shadow realm, and now Evan Johnson tries to showstopper, tries to do something as Electrocute tries to burst Kelly over the wall. But the Feather Storm has to come out from Smurf Ginger, and he's going to fall. This could be Murk Nimbus' game. It's now a 3v5. Pure Acid is trying to heal up with that Warmogs, using the Weaver's Wall, but actually putting Pure Acid into the enemy team of Murk Nimbus. That could be it. Electrocute may have just sealed his own team's doom. What was that? Shadowy Figure drops. Kelly, Boone, and a Furious Doctor are going down the mid lane. They don't have Baron anymore, but they might not need it. This inhib is going to fall. 20 seconds on Pure Acid and Smurf Ginger right now. It is on Electrocute's shoulders. MF using that bullet time to try and deal more damage, but there goes Boone. He's gone legendary. MF picks up another kill. Kali, this is going to be a 1v5. Can Electrocute hold it out? It doesn't look like he can. Big Black Clocks are going to fall in the finals. Murk are pulling off the reverse sweep.
This has been the only time I've ever seen BBC buckle under pressure, and so even with this game 5 finally going over to the way of Murk Nimbus, to discredit this team who has made it this far, who has put up this much of a fight, being the undisputed underdog. And when I keep emphasizing the fact that they had to win a tiebreaker even to be here, nobody thought that they would win this tiebreaker. I remember being involved with the chat the day that they did, and the amount of just shock and memes that were coming out when Big Black Clock made it there. And one member of the cast even stated that it's such a shame that Big Black Clocks won the tiebreaker just to be forced to lose the first game of the quarters. Well, here they are. They made it to finals, and they took the favorites to game 5, and what a close game 5 it was.
Yeah, this game was close, and it just felt like Murk were slowly but surely constantly getting advantages around the map. This wasn't one of their explosive wins like last time, nor was it one of BBC's great early game but slowly fall off. This was Murk Nimbus getting an advantage early and pushing it systematically all the way to the enemy nexus.
Yeah, and that was just fantastic. Are we going to have the pleasure of an interview with the winning team?
We're going to have an interview with Boone.
with Boone. Oh, that is a treat. He has not done an interview yet, to my knowledge.
Yeah, so as we get him into the chat soon, we're going to be having our MVP poll coming up. So keep an eye on that in Twitch chat. It will be up to you guys to vote and decide who the MVP of this series was. Was it shadowy figure, Boone, or a Furious Doctor? All three of them performed fantastically so far this series, every single game. A Furious Doctor's hooks, this game in particular, I feel like I wasn't able to cast that well because so much was constantly fighting, but he was always the one who started off these fights. He was always the one who popped off and managed to get that initial initiation or initial catch out onto thereby also, who the rest of the series was performing spectacularly and force him into awkward situations.
Yeah, that was such a hype series. Big Black Clocks did not disappoint, nor did Murk Nimbus. And as easy as it would be right now to jump on either hype train and to really, tell the tales of Murk Nimbus, we'll have plenty of time to do that once the interview starts. But for now, I just want to talk one more time about the journey of Big Black Clocks to get here and their ability to take this game to Game 5 and to be such a dominant force. Honestly, they should be so proud of themselves for having made it this far.
Yeah, they were absolutely insane. This series, in the last, every single member of their team really stepped it up. Despite not playing that much solo queue on these accounts, they've been showing why you can't judge a player just by their rank.
No, you cannot. And while I will say, after seeing this, even though they did not win, I think they confirmed the myth of the conference gap, because there is not a single team in the Friday conference who would have made this game as close as it was.
No, not at all. We are now adding Boone to the chat, so if anyone in chat has questions for the very likely MVP, make sure to mention them, as I'm going to hand most of this over to DarkPie. Boone, right now you are leading the MVP vote 11 votes. Right now, second is a Furious Doctor with 1. How does that feel?
That feels bad, man. I would have definitely given it over to Doc.
And hearing this music in the background, I can tell you're already celebrating your victory, and honestly, I don't quite blame you. So, what was your thought going into this series? Because I don't think you guys expected to go down 0-2.
No, I can't really speak for the team's thoughts, but at least my own, I kind of was a little cocky, I guess, going in, just looking at the OPGG. And that quickly changed after game 1. Like, it was a very hard stomp. But yeah, other than that, I just kind of show up. That's me. I just show up, and not a lot of thought until we're actually doing the draft.
Once it hit the 0-2 mark, and you guys were going into game 3, how was there any sort of mental boom going on within the chat? Because even in game 3, while you guys did eke out a win, it was by no means convincing.
Yeah, by game 3, I think everyone just sort of wanted to go for comfort. We're like, okay, if this is the last game, we're going out on our comfort picks, and I think that helped out a lot. I think one thing that we changed up was the mid liked to roam a lot and just kind of snowball the early game. So as soon as we started picking up more mids that had wave clear to match that and pressure that, stop her from roaming as much. And also we started calling out a lot more, warding a lot more, calling out a lot more, and just having a lot more prio and thinking about the picks before we actually go for them.
Well, in that case, that's fantastic. So you did mention that you believe that Furious Doctor should be the MVP. Now, other than almost single-handedly carrying game 3 with Pike and being instrumental in game number 4, and even arguably landing some important hooks game 5, is there anybody else on your team that you feel really stepped up today? Just a single person. You can't say everyone. No cop-out answers.
Okay, I don't like to single people out. I honestly think everyone stepped up, but I don't think I could pick anyone other than Doc. I think that everyone was shitting on his Pike so hard, but he came back and just absolutely turned around game 3. We lost that fight. it could have been the end of the series, but just completely turned it around and allowed us to actually reverse sweep.
Okay, in that case, I honestly just have two more questions, if you don't mind. One of them being, you were allowed on your Vel'Koz 2 games in a row. You obviously dominated on it, and then come the final game, you were finally forced on your Victor. Did that make you nervous at all?
A little bit. The Victor was kind of a takeaway. I was a little nervous just because Vel'Koz is a really big comfort pick for me, and it's really good at like disrupting team fights, which is what their comps were about. They just wanted to go in and go in and go in. So I was a little worried that I wouldn't have as much tools to kind of work around team fights with Victor, but it literally just came back down to the wave prio, like constantly being able to shove in and pressure this Talia from being able to get successful roams off.
Okay, and in that case, my final question is just, do you have anything to say to the viewers of SFL or to your opponents who might be listening in on this over at the Big Black Clocks?
I'm not big on flaming, but the only thing I can say from my team to the other team is just it was comfort stiff.
All right, you guys heard it here. In that case, Leche, do you have anything to say?
Not really. I would just like.
Sorry,
Oh,
I do have I don't mean to interrupt, but I see that there's a question being spammed in chat that I'm specifically being tagged and begged to ask, and at this point, I feel like I have to. Boone, do you mind
Go
if
ahead.
I ask? Okay, and I'm just gonna quote it from the chat. Excuse me, Mr. Boone, how much money did BBC pay you to pull off this huge Game 5 win? We had... I'm going to ignore the part that's not the question.
You know, that CERB check just came in. Everything went right to it.
All right. Well, go ahead, Leche, your final remarks.
I would just like to thank everybody for tuning in. This was a crazy series. Both teams should be so proud of themselves, but there can only be one victor. Murk Nimbus, do not drop a game and come out of SFL undefeated. Or pardon me, don't drop a series. Come out of it undefeated. So thank you so much for tuning into Sugar Free League. Make sure to join the Discord. Follow us on Twitter so you can catch back up when we start up our next season. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.